ahead, of course, starting ahead of the local government elections, but culminating towards the general elections, the next general elections. So the Alliance pledges ethical leadership, competent governance, and citizen-driven renewal across the country. What we will do is that at 8:10, we'll be in conversation with Thulasizwe Simelane, the leader of Rise Mzansi, because between now and that final amalgamation of the political brands, they will each retain their separate identities in the interim until the next general election. So Thulasizwe Simelane will continue to be the leader of Rise Mzansi while serving as part of the Council of Leaders of the Unite for Change. So Thulasizwe will talk to us at about 8:10 about why this move makes sense in opposition politics in South Africa, but also, just keeping it together, the likelihood of them being able to keep it together until that final amalgamation and how it will all work out, knowing how politics can actually play itself out in these kinds of setups. So I'll speak to Thulasizwe at about 8:10. The South African Medical Association, SAMA, has suspended all professional and bilateral relations with the Israeli Medical Association, that is the IMA. SAMA says in a statement that the IMA should be barred from the World Medical Association. The association says this follows concerns about the ongoing humanitarian crisis in Gaza and the conduct of the IMA with regard to international medical ethics and humanitarian obligations. SAMA says these resolutions will remain in effect until the IMA takes action to demand the urgent release of all detained Palestinian medical personnel and also condemn the systematic destruction of Gaza's healthcare systems. So at about 7:10, I'll be in conversation with Dr. Zanele Pikicha, who is the vice chairperson of the South African Medical Association. So that conversation coming up in the second hour of the show. Then lastly, let me flag this one for you. And we've got to give credit to the initial reporting of our colleagues at The Citizen for that story. The practice of religious and cultural rituals in one of Johannesburg's nature reserves has pit adherents of those practices against the city's bylaws and caused a fair amount of tensions among them and residents of nearby suburbs. Some residents in the Roodepoort suburb of Hildekrein are at their wits' end, having repeatedly raised concerns about religious and cultural groups making fires, making noise, and also engaging in activities that involve nudity and indecent exposure, as well as the environmental damage associated with just the gatherings that happen around that body of water, that park, that area. So, associated with the practice of those religious and cultural rituals near a body of water in the Bird Park Close Park. All right? Bird Close Park. Yes, Bird Close Park in and around Hildekrein. So at the same time, then, officials stress the need to respect freedom of religion and cultural life, while also, of course, we're told that this has long included ceremonies by water and in open spaces. Johannesburg City Parks and Zoo, for example, say it is working to balance residents' safety and environmental protection with the rights of groups to practice their traditions. But with reports of repeated fire outbreaks, littering, noise, and nudity complaints, the debate highlights the ongoing challenge of managing shared public spaces in diverse urban settings. So at about 7:45 this morning, I'll be in conversation with Philip Mkombo, who is the North Conservation Specialist, Conservation Management Department at the Johannesburg City Parks and Zoo. So we'll unpack all of that, the dynamics at play, how they're trying to balance the interests of the different communities, one religious and cultural, on the other hand, the residents of that area around Hildekrein, and see how that balances out. So that conversation coming up at about 7:45 this morning. all your regulars locked and loaded once again this morning. And Musa at the news desk, Rob Byrne on your traffic. Zaikan is watching all things sport, Melissa Puta with the morning brief in brief. Ndauleng Lechela with insights into the economy, business and market updates, as well as Sipho Mantula with an overview of developments around the continent and her diaspora. And that is in the Africa update at about 20 to 7 this morning. Of course, in it all, I'd love for you to be a part of the conversation. So do give me a call. The number to dial is 086 000 2032. I'll take your WhatsApp voice notes if you send them to 0614 104 107. On social media, we are at SAFM Radio on X, SAFM Radio on Facebook and Instagram. And as always, we are live on all our digital platforms, including our YouTube channel, which is SAFM Radio. So we've started it, revved it up a little bit. It's now idled enough. Let's put it in gear and get going on this Monday morning.
With the ever-changing financial landscape, it can be difficult to make sense of all the moves at times. Join me, Jimmy Moyaha, on the SAFM Market Update with MoneyWeb, Mondays to Thursdays, 6 to 7 p.m, as we break down the key market trends, top financial stories, and smart investment insights all in one place. It's everything you need to stay financially informed and ahead of the curve.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
14 minutes after 6. Kicking us off as always is Melissa Puta with the morning brief in brief. So Kenny, good morning to you, Melissa. I'm raring to go on a Monday morning. Something in the coffee, Kathy would say. Kenny Gunene returns as MMC, but it seems that if the minority governing parties have their way, we could see more changes in the mayoral committee there.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. Minority governing parties in Johannesburg have called on Mayor Dada Morero to dismiss MMC for community development, Tebogo Nkoku, citing poor performance and lack of accountability. The minority governing parties, a coalition of 10 smaller parties within the ANC-led government, once Nkoku replaced by Tapelo Ahmad from Al Jamaa. They accuse Nkoku of failing to attend key meetings and not providing reports, particularly regarding the poor state of city facilities and the limited number of operational swimming pools. So we will have to see how this plays out within the city of Johannesburg.
And from Parliament, we're hearing from the Portfolio Committee on Social Development. What are these inefficiencies and governance failures that they want fixed?
So the Portfolio Committee on Social Development has urged the government to urgently fix systematic inefficiencies and governance failures in the Department of Social Development, SASSA, and the National Development Agency. Chairperson Bridget Masangu warned that ongoing issues including corruption, technical failures, and leadership instability, particularly in the NDA, are undermining efforts to combat poverty and support vulnerable citizens. Marking Social Development Month, Masangu called for a collective society-wide effort to improve service delivery and protect the country's most at-risk communities, especially within the rural areas of the country.
And lastly, we're also hearing from the Department of International Relations and Cooperation. This has to do with the activists from South Africa who were taking part in the global Sumud flotilla, which was intercepted by Israel, yeah?
Yes, so DIRCO has confirmed that the South Africans who were detained by Israeli forces after joining a Gaza-bound aid flotilla, including Mandla Mandela, are safe and in good health and in good spirits. The flotilla carrying humanitarian aid was intercepted by Israel for allegedly violating a naval blockade. Though activists dispute the legality of the action, DIRCO is working on securing the release and return home safely of all of these good Samaritans who are on the flotilla. Meanwhile, South Africa has welcomed Hamas' willingness to release Israeli hostages and urged Israel to reciprocate, reaffirming its call for ceasefire and lasting peace within Gaza. So it will be interesting to see if Israel does stick to the commitment that they've made and how this will play out.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I can mention that that's the focus of our Worldview update, which is coming up in the next few minutes. Melissa, thank you for that. That's Melissa Puta with the Morning Brief in brief.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
Yeah, so on the weather front, it's one of those days when I have a litany of warnings that have come through from the Weather Service. So what I'll do is run through all the warnings and then I'll give you your highs and lows of the major centers around the country. So let's start. The first one is a yellow level 2 warning. It is for severe thunderstorms leading to localized damage to settlements and infrastructure, localized flooding of susceptible roads, low-lying areas and bridges, minor vehicle accidents due to slippery roads and poor visibility, and large amounts of small hail or large hail over an open area. That is expected in places over Gauteng as well as the Highveld and escarpment areas of Mpumalanga. Then there's a yellow level 2 warning for damaging interior winds leading to damage of settlements and infrastructure, some transport routes and travel services affected by wind, risks of localized runaway fires and danger to life, and that is expected over the extreme eastern parts of the Free State as well as the western parts of KwaZulu-Natal. Yellow level 2 warning for damaging waves leading to difficulty in navigation at sea. That is expected between Saldanha Bay and Plettenberg Bay. Then a yellow level 1 warning. It is for damaging waves resulting in localized disruption of harbors and or ports with small vessels at risk of taking on water and capsizing in locality. And that is expected along the coast between Plettenberg Bay and East London from the afternoon. And lastly, a yellow level 1 warning. It is for damaging winds leading to disruptions to beachfront activities, and that is expected between Cape Point and Plettenberg Bay. The highs and lows in the major cities: Pretoria 10 to 30, Johannesburg 10 to 29, Vereeniging 11 to 29, Mbombela 11 to 27, Polokwane 9 to 29, Mahikeng 17 to 30, Bloemfontein 14 to 25, Kimberley 15 to 25, Uppington 14 to 25, Cape Town 13 to 18, George 11 to 20, Gqeberha 9 to 22, East London 13 to 23, Durban 17 to 24, Richards Bay 17 to 29, and lastly, Pietermaritzburg will be 13 to 28.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international or global news.
So the U.S. President Donald Trump issuing Hamas with an ultimatum: disarm, release all hostages, and give up control of Gaza, or face what he calls complete obliteration. In an exclusive CNN interview, Trump confirmed that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has accepted the plan, the 20-point plan for peace, which was tabled by Trump, which would halt the bombing in Gaza in exchange for prisoner swaps and Hamas stepping down from power. But Hamas has only partially agreed, committing to release all hostages and hand over power to a technocratic Palestinian Authority while seeming to reject demands to disarm without further negotiations. The group insists that other Palestinian factions must also be part of any deal, setting the stage for a complex and potentially fragile negotiation process. And that process is getting underway in Egypt today. So let's speak to Thembisa Fagute, Senior Research Fellow at Africa-Asia Dialogues. Good morning to you, Thembisa, and thank you for your time as always. I must say that I completely misread the likely response from Hamas. I did not foresee that they would be even willing to entertain this 20-point proposal in the way that it was framed, with a technocratic interim leadership with outsiders coming in, demands for them to disarm. But there's been a partial acceptance thereof. What has made the conditions conducive for this conversation to advance as it has in the last few days?
Well, Hamas is on a back foot. The situation remains dire in the Gaza Strip, so they had to agree to the plan. And Trump has accepted the plan, but the person or country that is still bombarding Gaza, making it impossible for any transfer of hostages, is Israel. As we speak, dozens of Palestinians were killed overnight, and the day before that, over 60 Palestinians were killed. So, notwithstanding what Trump has said, that the bombardment will stop immediately so that the facilitation of the transfer of hostages can begin, Israel continues to disturb that process, and they continue to bomb Gaza as they've been doing it for the past at least over 22 months.
What does that say about the politics in Israel and what this deal represents for Benjamin Netanyahu on the one hand with regard to the issue of the release of the hostages, but also at the same time, if you've been in battle and you are the wartime prime minister, there's currency there, isn't there?
Well, he hasn't been in battle, nor has he been the wartime prime minister. He is actually a genocider because he's been killing unarmed civilians. The majority of people that have been killed by far have been innocent women and children. So Israel has not been fighting Hamas in Gaza. They've been actually killing and trying to obliterate and committing this genocide. But Benjamin Netanyahu finds himself in a much more difficult position because, one, this proposal is rejected by his current ally, the ultra-right-wing ally, led by both Bezalel Smotrich and Itamar Ben-Gvir. So these are the two ultra-right-wing politicians who want to see the obliteration of the Palestinians and killing of children. They've said some really weird things about killing children in Gaza and in the West Bank. So he's going to alienate them because they're not going to support this. He's likely to go into an alliance, or he's going to get support in the Knesset from the left within the Knesset, led by people such as Yair Lapid, who's the leader of the left within Parliament. But that will also, or could, create a collapse of his government, which means then there will be a snap election, and chances are he's not going to be supported by either the left, nor is he going to be supported by the right. So he finds himself in a much, much more complicated position because right now he needs support of the left, but at the same time he's going to alienate the right, and when election comes, the left is not going to be voting for him. So he's basically in a much, much more complicated position. This could be his actually end of his political career as it currently stands.
Let's talk about the likely hurdles to the implementation of this 20-point plan for peace in Gaza. Talk to me about disarmament of Hamas, how much of a sticking point that is, as well as the withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza.
Well, you must remember that it's not only Hamas that is being told to disarm. Hamas works very closely with another organization called Islamic Jihad. And Islamic Jihad, by the way, has its own hostages. So when you talk about hostage exchange, it's not only Hamas that's going to exchange hostages, but we also have to convince Islamic Jihad to do so. That's the first point. The second point is Hamas's arms and weapons have been obliterated. We know from reliable sources that at least 90% of what they used to have is all gone. So they've got about 10% or so, and then I don't see them giving up the 10% armory that they currently have. They're likely to keep it and continue to use it. Although Hamas will disarm, but we don't know about what will happen to Al-Qassam Brigade, which is the armed wing of Hamas is currently in Gaza. I doubt, or I don't see them disarming. But it's a discussion that I think the Qataris and the Egyptians are going to be having with Hamas, and it's something that's going to be relayed over to the United States when whatever the decision is that they're going to be taking.
All right, Thembisa Fugora, thank you for your time as always. Thembisa Fugora is Senior Research Fellow at Africa-Asia Dialogues.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning to you. So Good morning.
Good morning.
I saw someone quip on social media that this Amachita, they're not considerate. They're not very diplomatic. We're already in a sticky wicket with the US president, and now they go and do what they did.
Yo, I know, right? Beating the USA. Yo, Thulas. Next thing, I don't know what we're going to do. Is this like a Hollywood movie in the making, or I don't know. Or Trump, never mind. Anyway, let's just celebrate, okay? Let's just celebrate our team. They're not kids, but they are the under-20 side. Amajita writing history at the FIFA World Cup. They beat the USA 2-1, sealing their first ever spot in the knockout rounds. There were goals from Siwiwe Magadigi as well as Lazola Maku powering the young South Africans to glory, while the result also cements their place among the top third-place teams. Meanwhile, Stellenbosch stunning Kaizer Chiefs with a 5-4 penalty shootout win at a packed DHL stadium, booking their place in the quarterfinals of the Carling Knockout Cup. The match ended 0-0 after extra time, with goalkeeper Sage Stevens emerging as the hero, saving 2 spot kicks, including the decisive one from Dylan Solomons. The other match saw Knox Mutizwa hitting a brace of goals to inspire Richards Bay to a 4-1 win over Chippa United in their Carling knockout round of 16 clash at the Umhlatuza Stadium yesterday. The Natal Rich Boys joined Maruma Gallants, Golden Arrows, TS Galaxy, Orlando Pirates and Durban City in the quarterfinal draw, which will be completed with Stellenbosch as well as Magesi FC. Elsewhere, Newcastle had a 2-0 win over Nottingham Forest to pile the pressure on winless manager Ange Postecoglou. And then Jack Grealish scoring a stoppage time goal to end Crystal Palace's 19-game unbeaten run as Everton staged an unlikely comeback to snatch a 2-1 win. On to rugby, the Springboks are the Rugby Championship winners for the second year in a row after a nail-biting 29-27 victory over Argentina at Twickenham. Siya Kolisi saying the triumph is not just for us but for the people of South Africa, adding that the Boks know how to fight and dig deep when it matters most. South Africa edged New Zealand on points difference to lift back-to-back titles, a first for the world champions. And more rugby, the Lions just falling short in a nail-biting 22-20 defeat to Zebra in Parma as the Italian side snatched victory in the last-minute try in round 2 of the United Rugby Championship. Tennis action, Amanda Anisimova continuing her breakout year with victory over Linda Noskova to win the China Open 6-love, 2-6, 6-2. And finally, motorsport, George Russell dominating the Singapore Grand Prix as Lando Norris trimmed Oscar Piastri's championship lead after the McLaren pair made contact early on. Norris had a storming start but lightly collided with teammate Piastri on the opening lap to take third, where he would finish the race behind Max Verstappen following a battle for second. Piastri had to settle for fourth and sees his advantage over Norris cut to 22 points in the title race. But McLaren sealing the defence of their Constructors' Championship with 6 rounds to go. We'll be back with another round of sport. Top of the hour, I'm Zai Khan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa on the headlines. Parliament Standing Committee on Public Accounts will today start its inquiry into allegations of maladministration, financial impropriety and misuse of public funds at the Road Accident Fund. The Madlanga Commission of Inquiry is set to resume its public hearings in Pretoria on Monday next week. The Commission took a break last week after Crime Intelligence Head Tumisani Kumalo fell ill shortly after testifying. And the newly launched Unite for Change party says it has a council of leaders instead of one person being at the helm. The party, which is a merger between Bold One South Africa, the Good Party and Rise Mzansi, was launched in Johannesburg yesterday. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. A potential little gap for the motoring public as school holidays kick in from this week. Anecdotally, yeah, it's a little bit quieter. Some of those usual hotspots just aren't with us. Some of the usual ones are, though. There's some roadworks coming out of Brakpan now on the N17 between the R23 Heidelberg Road and Rondebolt Road to the exit to Boksburg. So Joburg bound, leaving Brakpan and Springs. That's quite slow into that single lane section. And the roadworks on the N3 North at the Clue interchange are still there. And the traffic this morning starting to push back back towards Alexandra. Keep in mind that it's an all-day delay. Once it gets going, it's all day. R59 North, that busy route into Michelle Avenue, looking quite slow as well this morning. Coming out of Pietermaritzburg, stationary truck at Ashburton. I can't see any major delay there, but just watch out for, you don't want to go rear-ending that. So coming through Market Road on your way to Durban up ahead, just watch that. And Cape Town, very slow out of Mitchell's Plain. The M7, Jake Skirville, all backed up into the R300 junction. A crash on Baden Powell at Jafta K Masamola. That's quite slow both directions along that coastal route at the bottom of Khayelitsha. And a breakdown on the N2 inbound at Mowbray Main Road. The N2 inbound from the airport quite slow. Behind that, the M5 already pushing backlogs back towards sort of Ottery side. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
This segment is sponsored by the special edition Hilux Legend 55. The Legend 55 has exclusive features like a branded styling bar, branded illuminated welcome lights, and 18-inch alloy wheels.
The Business Update on SAFM.
And for that, we turn to Ndauling Lichel. And Ndauling, OPEC Plus, good morning to you firstly. OPEC Plus is feeling generous, and so the black stuff will be flowing quite a lot more than than it has been.
That's right, Silas. And now they're doing this to try and gain more market share from U.S. Oil producers. The cartel confirmed yesterday it will raise oil production by 137,000 barrels per day in November, matching October's increase despite growing warnings of a looming supply glut. OPEC said the latest adjustments brings the total output increases for the year to more than 2.7 million barrels per day, roughly 2.5% of global demand. Now, the move marks a shift from years of deep production cuts, signaling the group's renewed push to, of course, reclaim market share from U.S. shale producers. Now, all traders had largely priced in the decision last week, and so we see Brent crude futures settling up 0.7%. With Brent prices trading just above $64.50 a barrel, while U.S. West Texas gained 40 cents to just above $60 per barrel. Still, both benchmarks logged steep weekly losses, with Brent down 8.1%. While WTI shed 7.4%, the biggest drops in more than 3 months. Now, prices remain below this year's peak of $82, but above the $60 levels last seen in May, underscoring how sensitive the market has become to OPEC Plus signals amid fears of a fourth quarter surplus.
Another car maker cutting jobs. Tell me what's happening at Renault.
So Renault plans to cut around 3,000 jobs through a voluntary redundancy program targeting employees in support functions. Now, the cuts are part of a broader cost savings initiative codenamed Arrow, aimed at trimming about 15% of positions in departments such as human resources, finance, and marketing. Now, the reductions would primarily affect staff at Renault's headquarters in Paris, as well as other offices worldwide. A source close to the company said a final decision on the plan could come before the end of the year. Now, the potential job cuts come after Renault posted an 11.2 billion euro first half net loss in July, largely due to a 9.3 billion euro write-down on its stake in partner Nissan. Excluding the impairment, net income fell to 461 million euros, less than a third of last year's level, weighed down by weak van sales, higher electric vehicle costs, and tough competition. Now, the group's new CEO, Francois Provost, faces the task of restoring profitability, regaining investment grade status, and steering the car maker through the tariffs that we're currently seeing, as well as growing competition from Chinese rivals.
Lastly, Ndauling, recap for us how we closed on Friday and the tone that has been set for the week in those markets that have opened.
So kicking things off stateside, markets closed mixed on Friday as traders assessed the fallout from the U.S. government shutdown.
The Nasdaq shed 0.33%. Meanwhile, back at home, the JSE closed last week in the green, with the all share up 1.5%, boosted mainly by the banks, the financials gaining close to 2%. The rand, in the meantime, remains resilient this morning. It's boosted by a softer dollar, and it is sitting at 17.24 to the greenback. And then lastly, in Asia, trade mostly in positive territory, with traders they eyeing key data out later this week.
Right, Ndauling, thank you for that. For 55 years, Hilux has conquered South Africa's toughest terrains. Now there's a new legend in the Hilux family. And it's not a bakkie, it's the new Hilux Legend 55.
Africa Update on SAFM.
And for that, we turn to Sipho Mantula. Raz, good morning. So let's start in Malawi. It's not really the return of the Mac. It's the return of the man. That is Peter Mutharika. That is now signed, sealed and delivered.
Absolutely, Thulas. Refreshing morning and Jumbo Africa to the listeners. Thulas, Saturday, it was the inauguration of Professor Arthur Peter Mutharika. It's a comeback at the age of 85. Thulas, a very low note. I look at the SADC leaders who went there. Hakainde Chilima from Zambia, Daniel Chapo, Mozambique, King of Eswatini, King Mswati the third were in attendance. Remember, Thulas, it was inauguration of both President Arthur Peter Mutharika and the Vice President-elect Dr. Jane Ansah. Mutharika said to us that he said Malawi, it is in crisis, and this is it is a man-made crisis, blaming Bishop Chakwera to say that Chakwera has left this country in a crisis. Now he has to fix Malawi through hard work and promising to combat corruption. Not for the first time we hear this word. Thulas, even Chakwera went into the State House with this ticket of corruption. He says he will move away from aid to Thulas rather than to move towards international investment. Those were the words of President-elect Arthur Mutharika Chakwera. Hence, Mutharika Thulas, as you said, it is not the return of the Mac, actually, it is the return of the elder at the age of 85, making him the second, by the way, Thulas, after Paul Biya.
Yeah. So let's talk diplomacy between Egypt and Ethiopia. At the heart of it is this issue of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. Tell me about the latest offensive that has come through from Egypt towards Ethiopia.
Plus, the Ministry of Water and Resources in Cairo and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs still blames Ethiopia for opening the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam last month, claiming that it is causing what they said severe flooding in Sudan and also going towards the Egypt lands and areas where people who are living next to the shores of the Nile River. But Ethiopia denies these charges to us because this has been a long-standing battle since 2011 when this dam was constructed by Ethiopia. But Egypt, it seems that it is worried to us. It is claiming that it is a reckless and irresponsible management of the dam. But Ethiopia is denying those charges to us. As you know, this has been a long-standing battle between Ethiopia and Sudan, as well as Ethiopia on the Great Ethiopian Renaissance Dam.
So there's been a period of a lull, you say, in Mogadishu, in Somalia, in terms of attacks and violence, but you're saying that has now been shattered with this attack on a prison.
This has been shattered over the weekend. That the government, you will recall, that they had stopped to have a lot of roadblocks and all these issues. They have lifted this, but within hours, there was a heavy gunfire heard in the capital city, Mogadishu, where the militants who have already claimed this, the Al-Qaeda militant group have claimed this, that they have released those prisoners who were in the prisons next to the presidential palace. This is worrying to us. You will recall that both the AU troops have been pushing most of this local militia outside the capital city. But it appears, again, you can lift the roadblocks, but again, there are attacks that have been leveled against most of the government. And this has happened next to the HQ of the Regional Intelligence Unit in Mogadishu.
Lastly, Sipho, take me to your historical archive. On the 6th of October 2006, something happened of significance in the cultural and heritage space.
That's quite true, Thulas. This is Samora Machel month, Thulas. It's almost 19 years ago when the former minister, Paulo Jordan, opened Mbuzini Samora Machel Community Public Library. It was coinciding with the 20th anniversary to us in 2006. You recall Samora Machel assassinated on the 19th of October 1986. So it was important to open that library as part of the heritage, but also the commitment that the former President Nelson Mandela did in 1996 to us, that there will be a site that will be built in the site of the crash that will be built between South Africa and Mozambique as part of the memorial. And who gave the lecture there? It was the former President Thabo Mbeki during the opening of the lecture. Actually, the opening of the library led to the lecture in the 19th of October 2006. A very important archive to us that is also is in our TRC files when you think about assassination of Samora Machel. Asante sana Thulas, it's actually in a conversation.
Sipho, thank you for that, Sipho. That's Sipho Mantula there with your Africa update. Just rounding it off there with that Samora Machel memorial site. I've been to the site in Mbuzini. Do yourself a favor. If you get an opportunity, do visit that site. It's just a powerful preservation and telling and recount of the story. They've got these windpipes that are installed there that represent the lives that were lost on the site. And the whole idea is that when it's windy, those windpipes will, naturally make a sound that comes out. They will chime out a sound. And it's the most haunting yet powerful sound because they say that, they represent the voices of those that died at that site. Lots of questions as well that remain unanswered. I remember interviewing the guy who led the investigation on behalf of the the National Safety Board that sent representatives to come and lead the investigation because, they always do that from time to time with major plane crashes. He was saying a couple of years ago, about 5-6 years ago, that even he now has doubts as to the circumstances of the crash of the plane that was carrying the president of Mozambique, Samora Machel.
Thulasizwe Simelane is streaming live now on Facebook, YouTube, and X at SAFM Radio.
All right, 16 minutes to 7. I want to read an excerpt from a thought piece that was written by Tahir Mayepa from the Public Service and Commercial Union, the Secretary General at that union. And I'll read just an excerpt because I thought the start of it is quite powerful, and then we'll get him in to elaborate on the points that he's making. Tahir Mayepa writes in The Star a couple of days ago, the staggering revelation from the Special Investigating Unit that 2 billion rand was siphoned out of Tembisa Hospital is not just another corruption headline. It is a post-mortem of the moral collapse of our governance system. It reveals a cancer that is metastasized, fed not only by corrupt officials and politicians, but by a banking sector that profits from the proceeds of crime while pretending not to see, while closing the accounts of black entrepreneurs, professionals, and organizations under the guise of reputational concerns, while they themselves being complicit in aiding criminal syndicates. Under the Financial Intelligence Center Act, financial institutions are legally obliged to detect and report suspicious transactions, yet billions flowed from a public hospital to a web of front companies and into luxury assets without raising alarms. This is not oversight, it is complicity, writes Tahir Mayepa, who joins me now. Good morning to you, Tahir. Powerful opening, and it continues and carries the tone throughout. Tell me what the point is that you are making about the banking sector and what you're saying is complicity in issues of corruption in this country.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. Thank you for the opportunity. Thulasizwe, the point that we are trying to make is that, as the PSCU, we are not just a trade union, we are also a civic watchdog against corruption that drains the public purse and destroys jobs and threatens South African financial integrity. And this issue, Thulasizwe, is not political, it's structural. Banks are central to how stolen money from the public coffers are moved and cleaned through financial systems. And what we're trying to highlight here is that we are all making legitimately so noises about the corruption that is happening. But we feel that no one is willing to handle the conduit, which happens to be the banks, that is aiding the movement of this corrupt money, because the banks themselves are making lots of profit from these ill-gotten gains. And we are saying that needs to be stopped. Banks need to be held accountable, because without the banks facilitating the movement of these funds, most of these monies could have been detected earlier, and they could have been stopped from being stifled out of the public coffers into the hands of criminals.
What is the conduct that you believe the banks are engaging in the context of laws, strict laws about money flows in this country, and the work that has been happening around getting us out of the grey list of the Financial Action Task Force? Are you saying that the prescripts that exist are not being implemented, and perhaps where it is happening, it happens when it's already too late?
No, you see, in as much as we welcome the fact that South Africa has exited the grey list in a way, but we also warn against complacency. Remember, the decision by the FATF was based on commitments to tougher oversight, not on the elimination of corruption, but in dealing with these financial flows that basically compromises the financial integrity of South Africa. And what we're saying is that we've got the laws, and the banks, they've got proper systems and algorithms to detect some of these flows. But we believe that there is no commitment from the banking sector to deal with these issues, because Thulasizwe, in the banking system, they have a system called detained accounts. Now, these detained accounts are accounts of the top brass in the industries, in business and in politics. These accounts do not go through the normal systems of the bank, meaning that an ordinary employee of a bank cannot have access to those accounts. These accounts are guarded by the CEOs of banks. And why? It's because of that's where millions and billions flow. And these are protected by them. And then most of those accounts are the ones that are not declared, and they are not highlighted, and nobody knows the kind of monies that are moving around, because the banks are making a lot of money and they want to protect those so-called high-profile clients. And that's where corruption happens. That's where money laundering happens. And that is why we are making this allegation that there's complicit by the banking sector deliberately to make sure that they protect their interests and they continue making money out of these money flows.
Lastly, Tahir, make the point then that you make in the piece about inconsistencies in how these rules are applied, and you're saying that they are applied against black entrepreneurs, professionals and organizations under the guise of reputational concerns, such issues as the whole idea of a politically exposed person and the scrutiny that then attaches to people like those.
Absolutely. You know, over the years, especially insofar as we are concerned as black people, the banks have targeted small, medium entrepreneurs for ridiculous so-called offenses, and they close the banks of these entrepreneurs on an allegation. Remember, the banks don't even have to prove that these people are guilty of anything, and banks have now taken a status of being the court of law. So they prosecute black people, especially entrepreneurs, that they see that they've got an opportunity to grow. And the moment you close people's account, basically you are stifling the opportunity of them ever growing their businesses. They are able to do that. But people who are stealing billions from the coffers of government, these people, they go undetected. They don't care about them because the banks are making money. So this systematic progression of targeting certain individuals is what the bank have
been doing for many years, and they've succeeded in really destroying the lives of many black people, especially entrepreneurs. But the criminals, they continue making their business as usual within the banking system, and nobody is doing anything about it.
All right, let's leave it there. Tahir Mayepa, you've gotten the conversation started. He's the Public Service and Commercial Union, PSCU Secretary General.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Yeah, very good morning. N3 in Joburg under a bit of pressure. There's big backlogs from Elan's interchange, moving up through Heldenays, through Van Buren, and up into Galulis. That's fairly heavy for a school holiday Monday. Once you get through that, you're then into that big backlog between sort of Alex and the Buccleuch interchange. Those permanent lane closures are still a thing this morning. The Mike 1 from Boyston through Parktown, fairly heavy. The N1 now is busy. Old Joburg Road, right down to New Road. So again, school holidays not really having a noticeable impact on the sort of time it's going to take and the length of the queue to get through that Midrand area. Durban's N2, quite heavy from the M7 moving up towards Umgena Road. It looks a slightly different traffic pattern, like something may have broken down just after the sort of Westwood Mall area this morning. It's an extended queue closer to Umgena Road before you're out of it. Higginson Highway at Havenside, quite slow if you're leaving the Chatsworth area. Quite a backlog there out towards the N2 highway. And Cape Town, just also having a look at volumes there. It doesn't look too much lighter than what you'd normally expect. The one big exception is the M3 coming in from Constantia, Weinberg Hill. That's very light volumes compared to when we were under school term. So that M3 is a bit of a win this morning. Heavy pressure out of Mitchell's Plain. M7 North, R300 West. It's got the hallmarks of the traffic lights perhaps being down at that junction if you're trying to get out of Mitchell's Plain towards Philippi, Samora, Michelle side. Very heavy. A crash on Baden Powell at Jafta K, Massamola, causing delays both ways. And the closure of the Huguenot Tunnel remaining in place until further notice. The N1 inbound is queuing as you come from Worcester Rawsonville side into the closure. All that traffic then being diverted through a couple of stop goes on the old De Toys Kloof Pass option. With your traffic updates, I'm Rob Byrne.
80 years of innovation, and we are just getting started. The CSIR, an entity that falls within the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation, together with the global sustainable technology and innovation community, presents the CSIR at 80 GISTIC Conference in Pretoria from 8 to 10 October. Held under the theme Science, Technology and Innovation for a Sustainable Future, the conference brings together global change makers shaping solutions for a sustainable future. Catch SAFM live on Wednesday, 8 October for exclusive conversations shaping the future of sustainability. The CSIR, 80 years of touching lives through innovation.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
5 minutes to 7. Let's turn to the judgment of the Constitutional Court, which got a lot of you talking towards the end of last week. The Constitutional Court handing down a landmark ruling that redefines parental leave for all parents, regardless of gender, family structure, or how the child was born. The unanimous judgment, it struck down sections of the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, which had previously granted mothers 4 months' leave, but left fathers and non-birthing parents with just 10 days. Now, parents will be able to share a collective of 4 months and 10 days of parental leave, marking what campaigners call a groundbreaking step for equality and family well-being. The ruling comes after a challenge led by Werner and Eka van Wyk, the Commission for Gender Equality, and other petitioners who argued that the old law unfairly discriminated against fathers, adoptive parents, and surrogate parents. Let's hear from Dr. Dennis Matotoka, who is CEO of the Commission for Gender Equality. Good morning to you, Doc, and thank you for your time. You were active participants in this case. Why was it an important cause to pursue all the way to the Constitutional Court?
No, thank you, and good morning to you and your listeners. From the Commission side, we always believed that the maternity leave, as is granted to birth mothers, was always granted by legislation on the assumption that the birth mothers always have job security. And it was not actually envisaged largely that women at the time would be participating meaningfully in the South African economy. As it is now, we know that women are doing exactly that. They are participating in the economy, they are running businesses, and therefore it is not practical, first and foremost, for them to take maternity leave because some of them, the businesses may collapse. So it was unjustifiable, therefore, not to recognize their meaningful participation in the South African economy. But more so, it was also important for us also to recognize that fathers play a meaningful role in the upbringing of children. So the distinction between birth mothers and fathers was also very problematic because it sought to minimize the practical role that fathers play in the upbringing of children. So there was a need for us to have a careful balance between the interests of birth mothers as well as fathers. So from that perspective, we felt that there was the distinction or the differentiation was unfair and could not be justified. So in this instance, we have seen that Mr. Van Wyk was prejudiced because he could not take the 4 months paternity leave because that was prevented by legislation. So we think that this was a groundbreaking decision, and it will go a long way in terms of ensuring that gender equality, both in the workplace and in society, is redefined and attained.
What is the impact you are hoping for? Just that, based on that point that you are making, because I suppose the emphasis is on the role of both parents, not just mothers, in and around the time of the birth of the child, but also the formative days and weeks, as we saw the criticism coming from the Constitutional Court about the previous regime. So what are you hoping this new regime will bring about in terms of family life?
Well, at least we are hoping at the baseline that meaningful participation by fathers. Fathers have long sought to participate in the upbringing of children. They needed to nurture their children because maintenance of a child, we must be clear, it's not just about financial support. It also is about being present. And that presence, we believe that it will go a long way in terms of shaping up the understanding of the children, the how we would want them to be responsible citizens of society. And we believe that both parents, whether male or female, they play that critical role equivalently so. So to deny a father of that opportunity is to deny the child, their own interests, which in terms of the Constitution, it says these are the best interests of the child and they should be of paramount importance. That is why also we have argued successfully in the Constitutional Court that even for adoptive parents, the capping of an adoptive child to the age of 2 and less, it was prejudicial because we believe that care does not diminish by age. In fact, it heightens. That's what the court has found. So we believe that the best interest of the child at all material times should be of critical importance, whether for adoptive parents, commissioning parents, or just birth mothers. But we just really believe that this judgment will go a long way to really ensure that children get the best parents that they can have in this instance.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time and sharing those insights with us. Dr. Dennis Matotoka is CEO of the Commission for Gender Equality. At 7 a.m. and Musa is on standby. She's got your latest news.
Outsurance is in the business of saving you money on your car insurance premium. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754.
In our top stories, Scopa to start inquiry into financial matters at the Road Accident Fund, and a snowstorm traps hundreds of hikers on Mount Everest. Good morning. Parliament's Standing Committee on Public Accounts, Scopa, will today start its inquiry into allegations of maladministration, financial impropriety and misuse of public funds at the Road Accident Fund. The aim of the inquiry is to establish whether there's been any non-compliance with laws or policies applicable to the RAF. If Scopa finds non-compliance, it will make recommendations on what action to take. The inquiry comes months after Scopa tried to get financial information from the RAF board and executive. The Madlanga Commission of Inquiry is set to resume its public hearings on Monday next week in Pretoria. The Commission took a break last week after Crime Intelligence Head Dumisani Kumalo fell ill shortly after testifying. Meanwhile, KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi will tomorrow appear before Parliament's ad hoc committee set up to investigate allegations of threats to national security. Mkhwanazi made the allegations, which include corruption, political interference and criminal infiltration of the justice system. Parliament has appointed Advocate Norman Arendse as its evidence leader. He says Mkhwanazi will be the first senior police official to appear before the committee.
It's not the same as the statement that was before the Madlanga Commission. In fact, it is referenced, the Madlanga Commission statement. In fact, we've tried to avoid a repetition, or there are a number of material differences. There is some new matter, some not evidence yet because he hasn't been called yet, but new matter that's also been referred to in the statements.
The newly launched Unite for Change party says it has a council of leaders instead of one person being at the helm. The party, which is a merger between Build One South Africa, the Good Party and Rise Mzansi, was launched in Johannesburg yesterday. It will contest next year's local government elections. Leadership Council member Patricia DeLille.
Because in this journey, it's very important that you must take your membership, your supporters together with it. On the issue of who is the leader of the party, we have agreed that we're going to have a council of leaders so that doesn't become an issue who must lead. But I think we further agreed that to have an elective conference towards the end of 2027 or 2028.
The SABC says it has continued to operate with strong governance and accountability as the Auditor General's unqualified audit opinions have confirmed for the past 2 financial years. It has described as inaccurate reports that it's planning another round of retrenchments. The SABC concluded its last major retrenchment in March of 2021, with more than 600 permanent employees leaving the organisation as part of its turnaround and sustainability plan. Moni Ngobane is the SABC's spokesperson.
Where operational challenges are identified, these are addressed internally through established systems and processes and do not warrant the kind of speculation currently circulating.
Further afield and finally, Chinese state media say 350 adventurers who were stranded following blizzard conditions near Mount Everest have been rescued, but hundreds more remain trapped. The remaining hikers and climbers will be evacuated in stages. The BBC's Laura Bicker reports from Beijing.
Heavy snow trapped hundreds of tourists trekking in the Tibetan valley leading to Mount Everest's eastern face over the weekend. Social media posts showed tents buried in what one guide described as unusually high snowfall for this time of year. This is an area popular with visitors, especially during the 8-day national Chinese holiday. Over the border in Nepal, heavy rain triggered landslides and flash floods that have swept away bridges and killed at least 47 people since Friday.
Recapping the top story, Parliament's Standing Committee on Public Accounts will today start its inquiry into allegations of maladministration, financial impropriety and misuse of public funds at the Road Accident Fund. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. You could spend 10 minutes waiting for the microwave to beep, or get a 10-minute quote from Outsurance that could save you thousands on your car insurance. For his 2024 Suzuki Jimny, 55-year-old Stefan now pays only 611 Rand a month. And for her 2024 Kia Sonet, 31-year-old Palisa pays just 926 Rand a month. Ready to get more out of your car insurance? SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Outsurance, licensed insurer and FSP. TCs and information online.
It's a very good morning to you in your SFM Sports Headlines. Soccer action, Kaizer Chiefs, their soap opera continuing. They're dumped out of the Carling knockout. We also have action from the Proteas women. They're aiming for redemption against New Zealand after a World Cup blowout opener. The details just before 7:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
The old Joburg Road exit and New Road. If you're on your way down to Joburg, got quite a bit of traffic to work through this Monday. The N3 is a problem. Heading north is big backlogs from Elan's interchange up through Bedford into Galuli's. More delays from Alex into Buccleuch as the double lane closure for roadworks continues until further notice. That is an all-day delay. Keep that in mind as well. Durban's N2, pretty heavy this morning from the M7, almost towards Umgeda Road before you're out of it. That's a little bit heavier than you'd normally get this time of morning. Looks like maybe something's broken down before you get to Umgeda Road. Stationary truck N3 leaving Pietermaritzburg just by Market Road, starting to slow things up on the way to Durban. Cape Town, crash on the busy Mew Way out of Khayelitsha at the N2 bridge. That's slow. Crash at the bottom of Khayelitsha on Baden-Powell Drive at Jafta K Masemola. There's some heavy traffic backlogging on that run through this morning. Baden-Powell under some real pressure. And the N7 getting up passing Langa on your way through to Epping and Goodwood is slow. Traffic sitting from the N2 highway up towards around Beaufort Circle in Epping. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
8 minutes after 7. We are on the move. It's the second hour of the Morning Brief here on SAFM on this Monday. Thank you for joining us. Do give me a call. Let's engage. Talk to me on 086 000 2032. Let me say it slower. 086 000 2032, or send me a WhatsApp voice note and even a message, and I'll read those out a bit later on by sending that to 0614 104 107. Among some of what we will cover in this hour, we'll be talking to Dr. Zanele Bikicha about the decision of the South African Medical Association suspending all professional and bilateral relations with the Israeli Medical Association. That conversation is coming up in the next few minutes. And immediately after that, I'll be in conversation with John Bailey. John Bailey is a veteran journalist and media executive, was at the SABC for many, many years, but spent a long time as well at ENCA, has been a foreign correspondent for many years. And the reason we're talking to John Bailey is that, you know, you'll have seen the news recently of the Sunday World and Sunday Sun entering a new era with John Bailey confirmed as their new owner. So I'll be talking to John Bailey in the next few minutes as well, just to get his thinking and the vision for these two publications in an ever-changing environment in the print media environment. So John Bailey on standby to talk to me at about 7:20. As I said, your calls, integral part of the conversation. So with that said, then, let's waste no further time. Let's get into it then. The second hour of the Morning Brief on this Monday.
You could spend 10 minutes waiting for that video to download, or get a 10-minute quote from Outsurance that could save you thousands on your car insurance. SMS out to 30754. Like 57-year-old Andy, who now pays only 1,083 Rand a month for his 2024 Ford Ranger. With Outsurance Comprehensive, you get 24/7 roadside assistance in case you break down, run out of petrol, lock your keys in the car, and more. Get used to getting more out. SMS out to 30754. After switching, 48-year-old Felicity now pays only 836 Rand a month for her 2020 Hyundai Tucson. Outsurance will either save you money on your car insurance or give you cash. That's right. If Outsurance can't beat what you're currently paying, ask them for 500 Rand. Make that 1,500 Rand if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. Savings or cash, you have nothing to lose. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Outsurance. Licensed insurer and FSP. TCs and information online. Limits apply.
Great news, travelers! FlySafair is now flying between Cape Town and Hoedspruit 3 times a week. So, whether you want to chase the Big Five in Kruger, soak up the views at God's Window, or wind through the beautiful panorama route, Hoedspruit is the perfect launchpad to some of SA's amazing natural treasures. Ready to go from coastlines to canyons in just a few clicks? Book flights now at flysafair.co.za from just 1,570 Rand. FlySafair, for the love of flying. T's and C's apply.
Who's behind the mask? A singing pineapple? a disco dancing Dokolosh? It can only mean one thing. It's the Mars Singer US Season 9, the only show where celebrities hide behind wild costumes and even wilder vocals. Is that Beyonce? No. It's your dentist dressed as a giant taco. Unmask the madness, the mystery, and the mayhem. Saturdays at 6:30 p.m. on S3. S3's got the masks, the music, and maybe your favorite celeb in a flamingo suit. Don't miss it.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
12 minutes after 7, the South African Medical Association, SAMA, has suspended all professional and bilateral relations with the Israeli Medical Association, IMA. SAMA says in a statement that the IMA should be barred from the World Medical Association. The association says this follows concerns about the ongoing humanitarian crisis in Gaza and the conduct of the IMA with regard to international medical ethics and humanitarian obligations. Let's hear from Dr. Zanele Pigicha, the Vice Chairperson of the South African Medical Association. Good morning to you and thank you for your time. What swung it for you? What was this the straw that broke the camel's back in as far as relations with the Israeli Medical Association go?
Good morning, and thank you for inviting me onto the show. So, as the South African Medical Association, we are an affiliate of the World Medical Association, as you know. And basically, the World Medical Association exists to maintain that we as physicians remain independent, but also uphold the highest ethics when it comes to practicing our profession. Now, for us at SAMA, we take that very seriously, and I will remind you of our political past, where we had physicians being used in torture during apartheid, the most famous case being that of Steve Biko, where physicians were used to keep resuscitating him so that he could be tortured. So it's very critical and important to us as a medical association that we uphold the highest ethical principles of our profession, which say first do no harm. And that is the principal basis in which we've decided to make the statement. We also didn't just, make a statement. We also engaged to hear what is going on the ground. Talked with them, talked with physicians. We had contact with other associations before we then decided to say, look, we are taking a principled stand as the medical association because we cannot be in this situation where healthcare workers themselves are being taken hostage, where healthcare infrastructure is being attacked, where food and medical aid is actually being stopped from being able to be brought in to those that really need it. And also where detainees themselves are being denied medical care. So those are the things that we looked at, which resulted us in saying that after all these consultations, we request the Israeli Medical Association to take a stand against what is happening, to say that there must be hands-off health institutions and they must be rebuilt. There must be given free access to food and medical supplies and other essential aid. And there must be release of all our healthcare professionals that have been taken as detainees. And also attention given to the detainees, whether Palestinian, Israeli, that currently are there needing medical attention. So that is the circumstances that we find ourselves in as the South African Medical Association, where we had to take this principal stand to say, look, until you are taking an active stand and we see you move to condemn this, we will have to suspend our professional and bilateral relations.
Someone listening to this conversation and having read your statement might say that many of the actions that you mention that are happening in Gaza have to do with the actions of the military command, as well as, the soldiers on the ground, the Israeli forces on the ground. So the whole issue around access for humanitarian aid, the whole issue of detention of people, including medical practitioners. Are you saying that the Israeli Medical Association is complicit in this, or are you saying that they are acting, they're falling short of the ethical expectations of your profession by failing to lift up their voices in condemnation of the practices of their government?
Yes, I think we'd have to go to say that we do not feel that they are raising the alarm wide enough as an organization, and they are not bringing enough attention to the crisis of needing help with themselves as the IMA being the ones to sound the alarm to say we need intervention. So we want to see them being the ones actively calling out and making sure that this crisis, that they get the full attention not only of the World Medical Association, but even issues like the UN if needs be. So we are saying that we want to see tangible steps that are visible, that you as the Israeli Medical Association are taking a stand and are trying to make sure that the situation is addressed. So that is what we're asking them to do.
In your interactions at the various platforms, would you say that the attitude is more than just failure to condemn? Do you get a sense sometimes, I'm asking, from your interactions, that they speak in defense of the actions of the government? I'm just trying to gauge the level of culpability that you are attributing to the Israeli Medical Association.
Look, I think the Israeli Medical Association are finding themselves in a very difficult position. They are in a war zone, and I think it would be very disingenuous for any one of us to quite, criticize them 100% not being in that situation. Because you yourself are in the war zone, and there's also limitations around that. But we do feel that there are other areas and avenues and mechanisms that they are not using to engage, and also making sure that they are seen publicly to be condemning this.
Lastly then, what are the implications of you suspending all professional and bilateral relations with the IMA, but also making the call for them to be barred from the World Medical Association? What would that pressure bring about?
Okay, so just with regards to the suspension, it is literally based on those terms that I've listed, that they then speak out and be seen to be moving against that. Then we'd be very happy to resume our relations with the IMA, because there is no actual conflict between the South African Medical Association and Israeli Medical Association. This is a principal stand that we're taking as Pharma, and would take if there was any other country that was also facing a similar manner. When it comes to our call for the suspension from the World Medical Association, now, you know that the World Medical Association is made up of a collective of different World Medical Associations, and each will have their own narrative and voice about how they feel on this. That is just the South African view. And obviously that will be tested currently. There is the World Medical Association General Assembly, which is taking place in Portugal right now. And obviously I do expect that this issue will be front and center. But all medical associations will then have their stand, and we will, see what is said. For all we know, the Israeli Medical Association may happily, agree with what we're saying. The only thing that we have decided to do is to withdraw from the working group of Taipei, which is being led by the IMA, until they are able then to meet our conditions, because we do not feel that they can lead the working group of Taipei, which is supposed to look at ethical conduct of research, given new developments around artificial intelligence, around specimens and testing modalities. So we're developing new ethical rules and conduct about how we treat that, and we felt we cannot have an association in an ethical dilemma being the one to lead us on that. So that is the one call we've made.
All right. Let's leave it there for this morning. Thank you for your time, Dr. Zanele Bigicha, the Vice Chairperson of the South African Medical Association.
For news on South African industry and mining, Creamer Media's Engineering News and Mining Weekly has you covered. Click through to Creamer Media's Engineering News each day for the latest on the people and companies shaping the energy transition and South African industry. Keep your finger on the critical minerals pulse by visiting Creamer Media's Mining Weekly. For deeper insight, subscribe to the Engineering News and Mining Weekly magazine, out on Fridays. Creamer Media, current, credible, comprehensive.
Let's rewind 6 years, when Twitter was still Twitter, not a letter of the alphabet. TikTok was simply the sound your clock made. And Zoom just meant enlarging a picture. So it makes you wonder, what will the next 6 years bring? Hino trucks now come standard with a 6-year drivetrain warranty, covering everything from pistons to gears. So although a lot can change in 6 years, our warranty promise won't. T's and C's apply. Hino, all the way.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Do great solutions start with good conversation? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
All right, for this next conversation, I must declare I've known John Bailey for many, many years. And this is the first really serious conversation I'm going to have with John in a great number of years. The Sunday World and Sunday Sun have entered a new era with veteran journalist John Bailey confirmed as their new owner. His takeover comes at a time of seismic shifts in the country's print media. Which in just the past 5 years or so has changed quite significantly, with flagship titles, some of them either shutting down or ceasing to exist as physical touch, feel and smell paper publications, while others have struggled with declining circulation. Bailey is a former senior editor at ENCA and at the SABC as well, and he says he brings a bold vision to strengthen the titles and their editorial voice while expanding their reach in an increasingly digital-first landscape. So let's bring him into the conversation. Owner of the Sunday World and Sunday Sun, John Bailey. John, at the end of the conversation, I will tell the people about your nickname and why and how you got it. But let's start with serious matters. Tell us about yourself for those who don't know who John Bailey is that has taken over as the owner of Sunday World and Sunday Sun. There's also mention of Zuko Horizon in the mix. So tell us about the new owners of these publications.
Hey, morning, Thulasizwe, and I will obviously tell the learners as well, or the listeners as well, what your nickname is. But yeah, to our conversation, it's really one that I'm quite proud of the move that I made in my career, because as you know that you and I have been in the trenches for many years, and I've been in the industry for more than 30 years. Part of that, as you mentioned, was at ENCA, where I've taken on a leadership role as the managing editor at ENCA over the past 3 years, or rather the past 5 years, where I've made that shift from being a journalist and a foreign correspondent previously in China to one where it's about the business side and managing a newsroom and what that entails. So over the years, I've really been fortunate that I've been exposed to the different elements within journalism and the importance that you see, especially for me also from that international perspective, how you see the developments within the international landscape in terms of the media, and the important role that any media organization plays. On the one hand, to hold those in power accountable, but also the importance in assisting a nation in its building processes.
Share with us your vision for these publications in the context that I painted, where more and more research is coming to the fore and showing a preference for digitally based interactions with news. Many publications adopting a digital first, if not digital only strategy. How do you see these publications going forward?
Well, to us, the digital component is going to be a very important part of where we're going with the Sunday World and the Sunday Sun, because as you rightly say, increasingly the focus is on digital as data becomes a lot more cheaper. In South Africa, it's still very expensive. That's why what we've picked up in the Sunday World is that there's still a strong reliance and a strong support for the print version of the newspaper. So we will continue with printing for our traditional audience, but increasingly there's going to be the shift towards the digital component, and also in terms of how we want to reach a specific audience, especially the young people in South Africa who has become very disillusioned with the current political and economic climate in the country. So that's going to be an important element for us, and that we will make content available for specific audiences, but also those audiences in far-flung places where they have the need to get information, whether it's what's happening in their specific communities, but also on a national basis, and how through what the Sunday World will be doing, will obviously be supporting issues around the national dialogue that's happening. Also, we need to inform our audience about G20, but we will hold those in power accountable through what we'll be focusing on.
Just in terms of the finances and the economics of media ownership, John, does it make sense to you at the moment, this move, as well as within the context that I painted, and how do you plan to really survive and thrive where many have battled with the economics of print media ownership?
Well, that's why for us, it's not only going to be that we are focusing on print. As I said, there will be a stronger focus on the digital aspects of media, but it's important that you have to have partnerships to be able to achieve that, because you know very well that to run a media organization, and especially in this case with print, it's not cheap at all. There's a lot of different elements and a lot of balls that you have to hold in the air at the same time. So what we'll be focusing on is on those partnerships that we have established, but also in terms of what is important, that as we move forward, as I said, we will be supporting what is being done right in the country, but holding those accountable as well in power. And it's going to be very important that you have stakeholders like government coming to the party to support what we are doing.
Lastly, John, someone wants me to ask you, who is your handler? And I suppose the question is, are there other interests behind you taking over?
Well, I think handler is quite a loaded word to use. It's, as I said to us, it's more a matter of that we will form partnerships with very strategic organizations in terms of how we move forward as a media organization. And again, it's really about us contributing to this fledgling democracy in South Africa, and how we are able to get that message out and telling our own story to a South African audience.
All right. Lastly, then, let's talk to the people don't know that you are called Mr. MLD, Mr. Money Like Dust. But clearly, because you're going into print media ownership, you're not going to have money like dust anymore.
No. In fact, I'm poorer now than ever before. But it's a matter of, as I said, we are doing this because you see the value and the importance of the media in our national discourse.
Yeah. All right, John. Let's leave it there for this morning. That's John Bailey. The nickname Money Like Dust is a nickname that he and I share together simply because at one particular point we were young and carefree and believed that we were going to have money like dust. MLD. That name has stuck for decades now. All right, I'm late. Let's go to N. Musa with the latest news. Money Like Dust.
Good morning. Thanks to us in the headlines. The fourth state witness in the theft of more than $500,000 from President Cyril Ramaphosa's Palapala farm will return to the stand in the Modimolle Regional Court in Limpopo today. The witness was provisionally withdrawn after he disputed contents of a statement police had taken from him. Lobby group AfriForum says it will consider privately prosecuting ANC Secretary-General Fikile Mbalula over his family holiday to Dubai in 2016 if the National Prosecuting Authority fails to do so. And Parliament's Standing Committee on Public Accounts will today start its inquiry into allegations of maladministration, financial impropriety and misuse of public funds at the Road Accident Fund. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Hey, Zai, I'm thrown off. I'm all over the place.
I know, the dust has settled. Not just for you, okay?
I guess the dust has settled in the culling knockout as well.
Ooh, spot on, Tula, spot on. I mean, yeah, no more spending like millionaires, but these guys...
Stop it. Please, can you stop? Can you get on with the work?
I'll tell you who's spending like amateurs. Kaizer Chiefs knocked out Tulas 5-4 on penalties by Stellenbosch. It was a shootout win at the DHL Stadium. It's the Carling Knockout Cup action with the match ending 0-0 after extra time. Goalkeeper Sage Stevens emerging the hero, saving 2 spot kicks, including the one from Dylan Solomons. Magesi, they edged out Amazulu 3-2, keeping their defence of the Carling Knockout title on track in the round of 16 played at the Moses Mabhida Stadium. In another match, Richards Bay FC coach Ronnie Gabriel says he's proud of how his side regrouped to book their place in the Carling Knockout quarterfinals following a heavy league defeat to Mamelodi Sundowns. The Natal Rich Boys, they produced a strong response, thrashing Chipper United 4-1. Gabriel crediting his experienced campaigners for mentoring the club's younger players.
I think we've managed to identify a way of blending in the youth with the experience and the experience to guide the youngsters through the processes. They're playing their role. Today we brought in Knox, he got 2 goals. Previously we had Mango in there also doing a job for us. So the senior players, Bafana Dlamini, Kimba, all doing their work in terms of guiding these youngsters here and helping us to reach our ultimate goals, which is to get back into the top 8.
Amajita making history. South Africa's under-20 beating the USA 2-1 to advance to the FIFA Under-20 World Cup knockouts for the first time in history. Elsewhere, Erling Haaland's first-half strike earning Man City a hard-fought 1-0 win at Brentford. Aston Villa beating Burnley 2-1 to register their first back-to-back Premier League wins of the campaign. And finally, cricket. The Proteas women wicketkeeper Sinalo Jafta has urged her side to maintain strict discipline when they face New Zealand today in their second ICC Women's World Cup match.
No, I think for us, we know that as a bowling unit to be really disciplined in our lines. You have the likes of Amelia Kerr, you have Susie Bates, you have Sophie Devine that have been playing for a really long time. But also you're not underestimating your Georgia Pilmer, your Greens, your Easy Gaze, she came off. And I think when you look at that, for us as a bowling unit is to be very disciplined in how we go about our things. And yeah, we've shed light on the batting. I think it's just going to be the character of the team. Are we willing to dig deep? We came from Pakistan, where we were able to, and then before that we were in Sri Lanka, so we've been playing in these conditions, so it's nothing new.
And that's your sport done and dusted for now. We'll be back top of the hour. I'm sorry.
Can't help yourself, can you? Yes.
Save me, someone.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Very good morning. Let's kick it off with an update on some of the country's busiest routes. The N1 linking Pretoria through to Joburg. That mid-round section fairly busy today. There's queues coming through Brockfontein Interchange all the way down to the New Road exit. N12 Benoni through to Boksburg slow. N3 Germiston to Galuli's backed up. Alex through to Buccleuch backing up into the roadworks there as well. And a crash on the Mike 1 this morning. Southbound at Caller Drive, so coming through Sandton on your way to Melrose. It's heavy. Everybody going north having a look at that. So there's not really a gap in the the traffic between Boysons and Sandton, and the N1 through Beyers-Nordia round to Ravonia Road looking quite heavy as well. Durban's N2 North, it's a busy jam-packed Monday as you sit from the M7 through to Westwood Mall. The queue was extending to Umgena Road earlier. That's backed off, but it's fairly normal backlogs. M13, St John's Avenue Bridge down to Paradise Valley, quite slow. And a breakdown on the N3 between Market Road and Ashburton, holding you up Durban-bound carriageway. Cape Town very wet this morning across parts of the greater Cape Town area. Those areas are going slow through the conditions. Big delays on Baden-Powell Drive. Crash at Jeff Decay Masemola at the bottom of Khayelitsha. That's a heavy backlog. No traffic lights. M7 R300, so it's snarled up all over that side of Mitchell's Plain. And the M5 is heavy today. Queues from Parkwood all the way up to the N1. Kuba get a change. Also a crash and a breakdown at Hospital Bend. The N2 inbound queues from Langa. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Business Update on SAFM.
For that, we turn once again to Ndauling Lichela. Ndauling, tell me about Anglo and Peabody. Tell me about them being at odds. This is over the coal assets, is it?
That's right, Sulas. Anglo is preparing for a court battle with U.S. coal producer Peabody Energy after the collapse of their $3.8 billion agreement for Anglo's Australian steelmaking coal assets. Now, the breakdown centers on a fire at the Moranbah North Mine, one of the operations included in the sale. The blaze stopped production earlier this year, prompting Peabody to abandon the deal in August on the grounds that it constituted a material adverse change. Now, Anglo has rejected that claim, arguing the event did not fundamentally affect the value or long-term prospects of the assets. Now, signs of strain between the two companies were evident long before the official termination. As early as May, Peabody said it was suspending financing for the acquisition, citing uncertainty around when operations at Moranbah North would resume. It later made it clear that the $3.8 billion valuation agreed to last November was no longer justified given the production stoppage and associated risks. Now, the outcome of Anglo's arbitration with Peabody will be watched closely, and analysts say if Peabody prevails, the ruling may reduce the value of Anglo's coal portfolio and dampen interest from other potential buyers.
That's a fascinating one in the area of M&As. Let's see how it plays itself out. The whole question of a fire, does it then diminish the value of the assets in question? Tell me about Stellantis planning to expand their South African plant's vehicle production lineup.
So the French automaker is shifting away from its initial bakkie-only strategy, pointing to changing consumer tastes and tougher competition, which it says are reshaping the local auto market. The world's fourth largest car maker announced in 2023 that it would build a greenfield factory in Gqeberha to manufacture the Peugeot Landtrek pickup. But Stellantis South Africa Managing Director Mark Whitfield said the company now intends to expand that lineup. He added that having a pure pickup plant is no longer viable, saying that the group is now set to decide on the final model mix by the end of the year, with production set to begin in the second half of 2027. Now, the Gqeberha facility will operate as a completely knocked down plant, assembling vehicles from imported components and locally sourced parts. It will supply both domestic and wider African markets, and this project formed part of Stellantis' long-term plan to deepen its manufacturing presence in the continent.
Oh gosh, it's a Monday. Sorry, Ndauling. I keep pressing the button on, off, etc. Lastly, recap for us where we stand in the markets.
I wonder if you've had your coffee, but we won't go there.
I have. I have. But I don't know what's happening. I keep pressing the button on and off. Yeah.
All right. Kicking things off in Asia, markets mostly in the green with Japanese stocks leading the gains. The Nikkei at record highs, up 4.7% this hour. And this comes after the country's ruling party has elected a new leader. Stateside, futures in positive territory. This as investors continue to bet on more rate cuts from the Fed, despite key economic data being withheld due to the government shutdown. And then coming back home, the JSE closed in the green with the financials leading the gains. The all share closed 1.5% higher on Friday. Meanwhile, in the currency scene, the rand remains resilient, trading at 17.26 to the greenback. Then in commodity markets, oil making gains this morning. This as OPEC Plus announced a smaller than expected production hike. Brent is trading at $65 per barrel.
All right, Ndawling, we'll catch up with you one more time just after 8:30, in which update, of course, as always, Ndawling will give you a sense of the trading day ahead.
We have different languages and cultures, but what we have in common is that we all want a dignified funeral and for our loved ones not to worry about money when the time comes. Trust Clientele to provide you with affordable funeral cover that will pay out within 24 hours. SMS SAFM to 48031. That's SAFM to 48031. SMS now. Clientele Life is a licensed life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates, terms and conditions apply.
James, congrats on the babies.
Yeah, thanks. It's a wild ride.
You're a new dad, 2 babies, 0 sleep, and 1 car that apparently couldn't cope.
Yeah, the hatchback was my baby, but it just didn't have enough space for my 2 new babies.
And are you happy with the price when you sold to WeBuy Cars?
Very. We've even got some extra cash to splurge on one of those fancy prams that you basically need a license for.
Good luck, James. WeBuy Cars. Geared for family, geared for you.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Right, straight to the calls. Let me start with Sydney out in Akonhoek. Avshen Tatan.
Brother P, my name is Sydney, deliver in Akonhoek Bushback Ridge.
Yes, talk to me.
Yes, let's see. I support the communication we had with the latter speaker just before the news.
Yes, Tahir Mayepa on the banks.
Correct. Because a few days ago, I did ask Brother Ashraf in the Ashraf show, what is the role of banks? What is the role of FACS? And these illicit transactions are taking place, when these crooked things are taking place, the government accounts, money is passed from government accounts to individuals. Why don't banks temporarily switch off, freeze that account before it finds a legal person to come and confirm if this is real? What is really the role of banks? Then Mr. Mayepa answered me. I strongly believe banks are complicit to this. They do know what is happening. Surely, they did took Mr. Mkhwanazi just to highlight South Africans, all of these intellectuals, banks, SARS, they didn't really see this. Then I strongly believe that they knew this. And somehow, they do benefit. I can believe.
All right.
Brother P.
Yes, sir.
I don't know.
Yeah.
What is the bank can be changed? I don't know what is there.
Yeah.
When an individual transacts money from this account to this account, starting from this amount, there should be a person to confirm this correct.
All right, Sydney, thank you for that. Yeah.
Thank you, brother.
All right, thanks,
brother.
Sydney in Akonhoek. Of course, we will reach out to the Banking Association, etc., and all other people in the banking sector to say, where are the governance and surveillance failures that are being raised by people like Tahir Mayepa and now Sydney? If we have so many laws, how come it is easy? Well, I don't suppose it's easy, but it is possible clearly to move monies around, right? Even illicitly. At what point do you raise red flags and say, what is going on? Why are these transactions moving in the way that they do? Who are these entities that are transacting in this manner? Without intruding too much into the privacy, it's a bit of a tightrope to walk. So it will be interesting to hear from the banks as well how they navigate that space. Jock in KZN, good morning.
Good morning, Thulasizwe, and I hope you and your team are well.
Very well. You?
Not really, Thulasizwe. Thulasizwe, I had the unfortunate experience of burying my 29-year-old friend, Tembeka, over the weekend on yesterday. And when the person that came on from the medical association, I find it so hypocritical because my friend waited almost 2 weeks to get from KwaZulu Municipal Hospital to Chief Albert Katuli. She waited basically for a transfer, and it never came in time because she passed away. So when the other things that I'd like to highlight, I think the medical association is completely politicized in terms of polarized in terms of the politics of South Africa, because when the Tembisa Hospital affair came about, I never heard anything from any one of them. When Thulasizwe Simelane came about, I heard nothing from them. So I think they're just grandstanding in terms of an international platform to say, oh no, we stand with this person and that person. Yet they offered no help for our current citizens who are suffering, which are not even 100 kilometers, 5 kilometers, 2 kilometers away from them. But a country that's thousands of kilometers away, we have the input and the ability to attack those issues, but not the issues that are currently affecting the situation of local South Africans and people that are really valid to this association or body. So I think she needs to literally go back to the board and really go back and explain to the citizens of South Africa that use their services on why we can comment on something but can't correct the ills or the breakdowns in the systems within the medical association and healthcare services in South Africa.
All right, Jacques. Thank you for making that point. I want to see if Mandla shares that perspective with you, Jacques. And condolences for the loss of your friend there. That's Jacques in KZN. Jacques in KZN. Let me go to Mandla in Cape Town. Let me hear what you've got to say on that issue, Mandla. Good morning.
Yeah, I concur with Jack. This South African Medical Association, they are hypocrites. They are playing into a political space. Tembisa hospitals, money siphoned there. They said nothing. People died there. Patients died. They said nothing. From the Eastern Cape, every 3 months, patients come to the Western Cape to collect medication because there's no medication in Eastern Cape hospitals. And it's expensive for them to come to the Western Cape. A taxi takes 2,000 rand a return ticket. A bus would be about 1,200. So it's expensive. We've never had anything from South African Medical Association. And Thulasizwe Simelane, they said nothing. And also children dying of malnutrition in the Eastern Cape, they said nothing, these South African Medical Associations. And women, one in the Eastern Cape killed herself and 3 children because of poverty, of hunger. And also one woman in Limpopo killed herself and 3 children. This South African Medical Association said nothing. They must give us a break, man. They must get out of politics, these people.
Sure. Got you. Mandla, I don't suppose that they've said nothing, but I suppose maybe in terms of the voice being given, what's the English? It's gone now. Amplified. That is the word I was looking for. Perhaps the voice was not as amplified as we are doing now. I don't know. I don't want to speak in their defense, but I don't suppose that they've said nothing about any of these issues. I suspect if you go back and you check the archives, you will find their voice coming through on many of those issues. Was it loud enough by comparison with what they are saying? Were they taking stern enough action as they are doing now in relation to the Israeli Medical Association? I suppose that's where the debate can be. But to say nothing, they did nothing and said nothing, I don't know if that would be accurate, because I do remember that a number of times we did have their voices on some of the crises that were highlighted by my 2 callers. Andile in George, good morning.
Hi, Thulas.
Yes, sir.
I wanted to talk about this landmark judgment on Friday. Yeah?
Yes.
That landmark judgment, it vindicated me somehow. You understand?
Yes.
Because last year I had worked for another company, another firm. So they didn't even want to give me that 10 days parental leave. You understand? They said we were busy. And it's November, and no one is supposed to take leave at this time of the year.
Yeah.
And it was my baby. It was like my baby was very small at that time.
Wow.
And I wanted to be there for my son, you understand? And now, when they're saying, now all the parents are eligible to have enough time to spend with their own children. When they talk about parents that are absent and whatever in South Africa, sometimes we feel ashamed as men, understand?
Yeah.
Because we are not there half of the time. Now we'll get the time to spend. I know there will be those that will abuse that time.
Yeah.
There are those that will see the loophole in the system, but for us that want to be there, that want to be parents, like the real parents, not be the 5-minute parent for of the weekend. Understand?
Yeah.
And those who want to be there and nurture your children from birth to whatever age you see them grow up. But I'm thankful for that judgment.
Spot on,
I'm
Andile.
very thankful for it.
Thank you for that, Andile and George. Truly, positive comment and a call about the role of fathers in our society, and the ability for people like Andile to be able to play a role in nurturing their children. Thank you for that. I'll come back to your calls and WhatsApp voice notes a bit later on.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Pretty heavy on Route 1 coming out of Pretoria down to Joburg this morning. You might be thinking, okay, it's school holidays, I'll take it a bit easier. But the traffic, it's not bad through Pretoria. But once you swing onto the sort of Brakfontein interchange, you really just join a queue all the way down to New Road. Very heavy around Joburg Highways, N3, backed up from Elands all the way up to Galulis. And then from Alex up into Buccleuch into the roadworks, it gets heavy. Crash on the Mike 1 South at Qualler Drive in Melrose. That's heavy. The Mike 1 coming off the N1 Midrand Buccleuch, real heavy through sort of Woodmead and Santon into Melrose. Motorists going north getting caught having a look at that. So effectively from Boysons to Santon, it's pretty much a joined up queue. And there is some pressure out of the Benoni area through to Boksburg. That N12 very slow, at least as far as the Rondebolt Road exit this morning. Leaving Pietermaritzburg on your way down to Durban. The breakdown at Ashburton's being cleared. There is now a crash on the N3 going in before Spaghetti Junction. That's heavy coming from Paradise Valley. If you're on your way through Pinetown or out of Pinetown to Durban, you might want to think about scooting through on the M13 via Westville. Come on at Sherwood and just avoid that run from Paradise Valley through Pavilion and down in towards the Spaghetti Junction. Heavy traffic backlogs there. Also, a stationary truck going northbound through Spaghetti Junction. So the N2 north from the M7 remains heavily backed up as well. Cape Town Baden-Powell Drive, an earlier crash at Jafta Masamola. That's the bottom of Khayelitsha. It's also Macassar Road on the other side. So Baden-Powell Drive, very heavy to and from the N2 highway. There's also a breakdown on the N2 outbound at Baden-Powell Drive. So that's heavy passing Khayelitsha. You've got that breakdown, then you'll really struggle to come off and get into Baden-Powell Bridge system because of the that crash and the backlogs there. Also collision going inbound on the N2 at Borchard's Quarry. That's holding up things past the airport runway. Another crash and a stationary bus further in on the N2. All of that unfolding at Hospital Bend. So that's heavy from Langa, and behind that the M5 backing all the way through to Ottery this morning, and just generally slow across Cape Town because of wet weather conditions. N1 Kraaifontein to Brackenfell, and then from Belleville all the way through to the city centre. Lots of traffic, high volume, slow go. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
6 minutes to 8. The practice of religious and cultural rituals in one of Johannesburg's nature reserves has put adherents of those practices against the city's bylaws and caused tensions among them and residents of nearby suburbs. What am I talking about? Some residents in the Roodepoort suburb of Heldercrane are at their wits' end, having repeatedly raised concerns about religious and cultural groups making fires, noise, engaging in indecent exposure and nudity, and environmental damage that they say is associated with the practice of religious and cultural rituals near a body of water in the Burt Park Close Park. At the same time, officials stress the need to respect freedom of religion and cultural life, which have long included ceremonies by the water and in open spaces. City Park says it's working to balance the residents' safety and environmental protection with the rights of groups to practice their traditions. I've got to give credit to the initial reporting of The Citizen on that story. So let's get into it then. Philip Mkombo is North Conservation Specialist in the Conservation Management Department at Johannesburg City Parks and Zoo. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time. How prevalent is this issue of cultural groupings, religious groupings wanting to use, because Johannesburg has many of these nice open spaces where, it's isolated and then there can be a body of water. Do we see this happen in areas beyond this particular park that we're talking about this morning?
Morning. Yes, as Johannesburg City Parks and Zoo, we are aware of these issues, and it's concerning us. These activities that are happening. It's actually in our park that is called Bedclose Nature Reserve. So there's a lot of people that are coming into that space because of the water body and the waterfall that is there. So people are doing their rituals there, but as well we've got people that are putting in structures in there. Some are putting the structures so they can steam when they are doing their religious beliefs. So we are very much aware of these activities, but unfortunately, because of the number of these public spaces that are there, we don't have enough warm bodies that can cover all these spaces at the time where residents give us a call. We sometimes don't have the manpower to respond quickly. But we are aware of these issues, and we try in our level best to ensure that our warm bodies are always there whenever we get a complaint.
So what's your inclination towards these practices? Do you consider them to be infractions of the city bylaws, and do you consider them to be problematic, or do you think there's room for accommodation and you consider them to be part of the religious and cultural diversity of the city?
Yes, as city parks, we do respect the residents' right to practice their religious belief as enshrined in the Constitution, Section 15. So we do, but over and above that, we also cognizant of the fact that these activities come with a lot of things that a lot of residents are not aware of, like sacrificing of animals, the nudity that will happen at those facilities, and the leaving of the area untidy and clean, and making of illegal fires in those spaces.
So what's the best thinking then about how to balance those concerns of residents in areas around Heldercrane, for example, as well as the interests of these groupings in practicing their cultural and religious life, but also staying faithful to the bylaws? What's your best thinking within city parks and zoo?
So what we think for us as city parks to find a balance is for us to be able to educate our people, to educate those people that are using that space, that space is a conservation area and it needs to be respected. And as well, we do have meetings with religious leaders where we tell them these activities, they shouldn't be happening in this way. The nudity needs to be reduced so that it respects other users of the park, and it also respects the residents of these spaces. And unfortunately, what happens is we get people that are coming from all over. Some are coming from northwest. They come to we've got another area called Mani Melda Recreational Center that is very famous when it comes to cultural practices and religious beliefs. So what we would like is to educate the public about the constitutional rights of those groups, and as well to educate those groups in how to conduct their activities in such a way that it accommodates every resident that want to utilize the space.
Tell me about the impact, the environmental impact that you've observed, but also I saw in the article in The Citizen mention of the setting up of open fires in an area like that we are told has time and again gotten out of hand, such that it ends up being a felt fire, and in fact in the report some damage to houses, to at least one house being reported.
As city parks, we are aware of reports that there was a house that burned down. However, in terms of the Failed Fire Act, if there's a fire that came and burned somebody's property, they need to come and notify JCPZ so we can investigate and check it. In terms of the house that burned down, we never received that report on the day, so we couldn't respond to the fire, because as Johannesburg City Parks, we've got the team as well that deal with failed fires. They call the failed fire team of Johannesburg City Parks that falls under the Department of Conservation. So the fires, that unplanned fires, are a big concern to us, because it can cause human life, it can cause damage to property, and it can cause litigation to us as the city. So with that, we try to, whenever we do see or we hear there's a fire, we go extinguish. We send our team. We've got a kit bucket that is fitted with all the firefighting equipment so that we can respond to those areas.
All right, let's leave it there for this morning. I've got to thank you for your time. That's Philip Mkombo, the North Conservation Specialist in the Conservation Management Department at Johannesburg City Parks and Zoo. Let's go straight to N. Musa with the latest news.
Outsurance is in the business of saving you money on your car insurance premium. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754.
In our top stories, fourth witness in Palapala case to return to the stand and Scopa to start inquiry into financial matters at the Road Accident Fund. Good morning. The fourth state witness in the theft of more than $500,000 from President Cyril Ramaphosa's Palapala farm will return to the stand in the Modimolle Regional Court in Limpopo today. The witness was provisionally withdrawn after he disputed contents of a statement police had taken from him. The court then ruled a trial within a trial be conducted to determine whether the witness made the statement or not. He was also declared a hostile witness. Emanuela David and co-accused siblings Floriana and Indilinasho Joseph are facing several charges for the burglary which happened in February 2020. Michael Makungo reports.
The witness who's a colleague to accused number one, Emanuela David, at a private security company, confirmed that the signature in the statement is his, but disputed the contents of the statement. He said statement was presented to him by police and he was ordered to sign it. About 7 of the 22 state witnesses lined up have testified. One of the state witnesses has testified that David purchased various vehicles to the value of more than 4 million rand using US dollars.
Lobby group AfriForum says it will consider privately prosecuting ANC Secretary-General Fikile Mbalula over his family holiday to Dubai in 2016 if the National Prosecuting Authority fails to do so. In 2023, the NPA decided not to prosecute, a move AfriForum says is flawed. Mbalula's trip cost 685,000 rand. It's under scrutiny for alleged money laundering after he received a loan from a supplier to the South African Sports Confederation and Olympic Committee. Barry Bateman is the spokesperson of AfriForum's private prosecution unit.
Well, we do anticipate the prospect of private prosecution if the NPA declines to prosecute, but it'll require thorough. And the reason we're going through this process, so we can exhaust all internal processes within the NPA before we make that decision. The difficulty in this case could be the fact that this is corruption, so it could be a test case for us. Well, our argument would be that society is the victim, and therefore society has a stake in ensuring private prosecution.
Parliament's Standing Committee on Public Accounts will today start its inquiry into allegations of maladministration, financial impropriety and misuse of public funds at the Road Accident Fund. The aim of the inquiry is to establish whether there has been any non-compliance with laws or policies applicable to the RAF. If Scopa finds non-compliance, it will make recommendations on what action to take. The inquiry comes months after Scopa tried to get financial information from the RAF board and executive. The KwaZulu-Natal Mental Health Advocacy Group says there's hope for the future as the youth start to discuss mental health issues with ease despite the stigma attached to them. The group made this statement in Durban yesterday at its 10th annual Mental Health Advocacy Walk and Wellness Fair to mark Mental Health Awareness Month. Co-founder Santosh Pillay.
The younger generation is really our hope for the future because they find it much easier to talk about mental health and mental illness. We find younger doctors are more savvy about mental health, not because they're taught better at medical school, but because they are just more personally educated about mental health conditions. They themselves might have struggled with mental health conditions, been more open to have those conversations. So we find that I think the interest amongst even younger healthcare professionals is growing.
And finally, Scottish scientists say new discoveries about an insect cutting mechanism could have profound implications for human surgery. The team at Heriot-Watt University in Edinburgh, Scotland, studied how female fleas use a saw-like organ called the ovipositor to lay eggs in plant material. The BBC's Rebecca Drought reports.
A study found the ovipositor automatically avoided cutting internal structures carrying water and nutrients. The researchers discovered that small serrations on the insect's teeth worked with larger protrusions to create the selective cutting action, using the stress threshold of each structure to know where to cut. They scaled up the mechanism and tested it on material mimicking human tissue. Although more work is needed, the team think there's potential for a surgical instrument based on this natural mechanism.
Recapping the top story, the fourth state witness in the theft of more than $500,000 from President Cyril Ramaphosa's Palapala farm will return to the stand in the Modimolle Regional Court in Limpopo today. For SFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754.
When 55-year-old Stefan got this deal from Outsurance, he grabbed it faster than a green traffic light. He now pays only 611 Rand a month for his 2024 Suzuki Jimny. And after one quick call, 31-year-old Palisa bagged a bargain of just 926 Rand a month for her 2024 Kia Sonet. Ready to get more out of your car insurance? SMS out to 30754 today. That's out to 30754. Outsurance, licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and information online.
It's a very good morning to you. In your SFM sports headlines, it's cricket action today. The Proteas women are eyeing a big bounce back against New Zealand after their World Cup shocker opener. And in soccer news, the Carling Knockout Cup quarterfinals are set, with Orlando Pirates being handed a tough draw against the defending champions Magesi FC. Details just before 8:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Very good morning. Joburg's Mike 1 Highway, very heavy today. A crash down at Corlett Drive on the southbound side. Traffic coming off the N1 through Buccleuch. Heavy all the way down through Woodmead and Santon and in towards that Melrose area. Motorists going north up to Santon, queuing up as well with the onlooking factor. N3 north into Buccleuch is heavy due to the roadworks. N12 Benoni through to Boxburg up towards Rondebolt Road. Very slow going through there. The N1 south through Midrand, that is starting to ease. Allendale Road out of Tembisa and Kempton Park. Big queues across towards Midrand this morning. You're going to be asked to sit in traffic on that section of Allendale Road. Durban, a collision, N3 going inbound at Spaghetti Junction. That's a heavy queue from Pinetown, backing up to Paradise Valley. If you're leaving Pinetown, just stick on the N3, go through Westfield, come on to the, or stick on the M13. Use the M13 from Pinetown via Westfield, come back onto the N3 at Sherwood, and just avoid Paradise Valley, passing Pavilion in towards the mall. It's a heavy backlog of traffic. N2 north, getting up through the roadworks via Genna Road is quite slow. Cape Town, what's going on this morning in terms of heavy traffic and wet weather conditions as well. So rain across Cape Town, everything going slow. A big crash on Baden-Powell at Macassar Road. That's heavy both ways. N2 outbound, queuing passing Khayelitsha to Baden-Powell Drive. It's a breakdown and some problems getting off the highway into that Baden-Powell traffic. And the N2 going in towards Hospital Bend. There's a crash and a stationary bus. It's pushing a queue back as far as Lunga and back along the M5 down into the Kenilworth area. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
It's coming up to 10 minutes after 8 on this Monday. It is great to be in your company. Welcome to it, the third hour of the Morning Brief here on SAFM. So I'm receiving one or two messages about that nickname that I said we share with the new owner of the Sunday World and Sunday Sun, John Bailey, Mr. MLD, money like dust. So I tried to tell the story, but obviously I was rushing to get to the point. But the story is, we were going to be deployed as foreign correspondents, deployed by the SABC. So it was myself, John Bailey, and Frank Ferro, the veteran journalist Frank Ferro. So realizing that, we're going to be earning in Forex, and, that's when the story of Mr. MLD started, that we're going to be rich. We're going to have money like dust. The exuberance of youth, naivety of youth. That's where that story comes from. So between the three of us, one of us has to be Mr. Money Like Dust. That's Mr. MLD. That's where that story comes from. It was private until this morning when I had to talk to John Bailey about acquisition of the Sunday World and Sunday Sun. All right, let me get straight to some of the messages that you've been sending me. Tulani Dasa says, Unite for Change will collapse under the weight of its own contradictions. Of course, in the next few minutes, I'm due to speak to Songezo Zibi, one of the leaders at the forefront of that new political formation called Unite for Change, which is an amalgamation eventually of the political parties Rise Mzansi, Build One South Africa, as well as the Good Party. So that conversation coming up in the next few minutes, and I'll be sure to ask Songezo about the contradictions that listener talks to. And then let me read this one. It says, this new parent law is just another dumb law, as always, says this person, talking there about the ruling of the Constitutional Court around family responsibility leave, which has to do with the, when parents are expecting a child just around the birth of the child. Now they'll be able to share between the two parents the 4 months and 10 days as parental leave. So there you are. That's what that is about. Charlie in Joburg says, SAMA have no right to condemn the IMA, being the Israeli Medical Association, as they are dishonest and corrupt and should sort out all their own problems with their own people in South Africa. They are dishonest, and I and others concur with your two recent callers this morning, says Charlie there. I wish you had said more, though, Charlie, about the manifestations of corruption and dishonesty on the part of SAMA. But nevertheless, I take the point that you are making there. Let me take one more. We had a caller earlier on. This was talking about how he battled to even get the 10 days as paternity leave around the birth of his child at the company where he worked. So he was saying he welcomes this development, the Constitutional Court judgment. Jan in Cape Town says, I'm shocked to hear that that company didn't allow the caller time off with his newborn. Even if you get time, they often shame you for taking it. They should be taken to the CCMA and fined. All right, thank you for that, Jan. Of course, around enforcement of the laws that are already in the books. All right, let's keep the conversation going. Do call me, 086 000 2032. I'll take your WhatsApp voice notes and messages on 0614 104 107. With that said, then, let's get into it. The third hour of the morning brief on this Monday.
So you thought you were building a business? In this economy? Good luck. But day by day, somehow it grew. You became payroll, procurement, PR, and pressure valve. You kept going when the freezer didn't freeze, the bucket didn't budge, and the bank balance barely blinked. What's that saying again? What doesn't kill your business makes it stronger? Or at least it should be that. So you thought you were building a business. You weren't. It was building you. Because this isn't just what you do anymore. It's who you are. And you don't trust just anybody to protect it. Chat to your broker about Old Mutual Insure Business Insurance. Protect what built you. Old Mutual Insure Limited is a licensed FSP and non-life insurer.
Join us Tuesday at 6 on Afternoon Express as we join entertainer and DJ Luke McPherson to chat about what comes next after his 30th birthday. Musical artist Baby Days joins us in studio to catch us up on all the latest. We look back on Mani Libok's journey to becoming a professional rugby player. Raul de Mornay and Malco Bay finally tied the knot, and Afternoon Express was invited to the wedding. That's Tuesday evening at 6 with repeats on Sunday mornings at 8:30 only on S3.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
8:15. Admittedly, my intro to this story is possibly cheesy, right? And I did pull it a bit earlier on. But as they used to say in the political space, asna valo dololo. So here we go. The three shall become one. 3 national political parties have decided that for Mzansi to rise and to build one South Africa, it is good for them to unite for change. The work to amalgamate the three political parties, in my wordplay there, is now underway, and it begins with a consolidated offering in the 2026 local government elections under the banner of Unite for Change. By 2029, we are told, by the general elections, there will be one party which they say will offer South Africans a united, values-based alternative ahead of that election by 2029. So let's speak to one of the leaders, the leader of Rise Mzansi, Songezo Zibi, joins us now. Good morning to you, Songezo, and thank you for your time. I hope you liked my wordplay.
Listen, I think if things don't work out at the SABC, you do very well in advertising as a copywriter, a highly paid one at that.
Let's talk about why this is a move that makes sense. Why does it make sense between the three of you as political parties?
Yeah, look, I think the first thing to recognize is the number of voters who've said there are too many political parties. That same people call on your show and they say exactly the same thing. In the case of our respective parties, they also say, you agree on most things, why don't you guys work together? And we've also met people who say, I split my vote between Good and Rise, I split my vote between Bossa and Rise and that sort of thing. So this cooperation just makes sense. But I also want to say that we're also talking to other political parties to be part of the effort, because I think we need to significantly...
Songezo? All right, we seem to be having a bit of a difficulty with the line to Songezo Zibi there. Let's see if we can dial him back, because he was in the middle of making the point about why this is, a move that makes sense in the context of many voters feeling that there are too many political parties, many of which actually are aligned and sort of share similar values and propositions to the electorate. So we'll try and get him back and see if he can talk to us about the mechanics, for example, the mechanics of, yes, you've got that shared vision and the values that you share, and you've now agreed that you're going to put your efforts together. But how do you then make it work in terms of the mechanisms of trying to do that? I think we may have Songezo back. So Songezo, you had made the point about the number of political parties in the country. I think where we lost you, you were talking about voters who consistently say they had to split their votes between similarly aligned and values-based parties.
Yes, it's correct. And the last thing I was going to say is that contesting a local election needs lots of people. You contest each and every ward where you've chosen, and you need people in every voting district. When you combine political parties that agree, you can maximize how far you can take your activists and polling station monitors and that sort of thing. So this combination makes sense in all sorts of ways.
What is the basis, though, at a values level and a minimum program and agreement level between the three political parties? What's going to be different, and what's the offering?
First of all, we think it's time for us to boldly state the case for social democratic politics. And social democratic politics, as I explained yesterday, is where an ethical, capable and professional state plays a central role in facilitating development and inclusivity through legislation, targeted investment, and so on. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that we're changing the culture of South African politics. Political parties are very insular, Thulasizwe. If you're not part of the political party itself, you cannot stand as a councillor, you cannot stand as a mayor. We issued an open invitation yesterday to South Africans who want to take their citizenship role a notch or two up and stand for political office, to put up their hand and say, I want to be part of an open and transparent process that will choose public representatives for the communities in which South Africans live. So that is the second thing. And the third thing is that we also issued an invitation to young people, especially those who've worked very hard to secure an education but are seeing their prospects being destroyed, to step forward and also take up leading roles in the new political effort.
What are the mechanics, though, Songezo, of how this will all unfold? My understanding is that the point of final amalgamation and coming together under the banner of Unite for Change will happen by the next general election in 2029. But what happens between now and then, and how does it stack up against real politics, knowing how difficult politics can be and fractious it can be?
Now, there are two things. The first is that each of the political parties and any other political parties that become part of this, that are already elected in 2024, have a constitutional duty to fulfill that mandate for the full term. So it is not possible to dissolve any of those political parties into one because they have a mandate, and Unite was not on the ballot in 2024 or in 2021. So it's important for voters to recognize that. For now, this will become the local government election campaign vehicle, where all of the parties and their activists and their supporters will campaign for the candidates, whether it is just for a ward councillor, peer councillor, or for mayor, to put them into office. That will give us the opportunity to know each other, to learn to work together, to build a team spirit and so on, so that we can then build on to bigger things in 2029 and onwards.
Is it also not part of you grappling with the reality that for many of you as political parties, RISE being an example, the returns at the polls were not what you would have expected given the amount of investment? Is this not part of the realism of grappling with that reality that perhaps we don't have what it takes to grow to the levels where we would want to be?
No, I think it's important to recognize that the only political parties that have done well out of the gate were breakaways of the ANC only, no other. In other words, they live with structures and members and branches and that sort of thing, and they use that to build on from there. Starting a new political organization from scratch is incredibly hard, especially when you are trying to change the culture of politics in South Africa and bring people into the political organization who perhaps do not have the political experience, they have not run a campaign before. One of the things that we wanted, because track record is important, is to put numbers on the scoreboard, have MPs who can demonstrate what they do when they've been elected. We've got an MEC in Gauteng. I'm chairperson of the Standing Committee on Public Accounts, and Makashule Ghana is driving one of the most important issues in South Africa, which is the issue of gambling. So these things take time, and people need to see that, okay, when we elect you, this is how you perform, and then they can trust you more in future elections. But we can't wait 100 years like the ANC had to, like 70 years before you win an election.
Very briefly, Songezo.
We have to scale quickly.
Yeah, very briefly. What do you say to those who are betting already that by 2029 this will all have disintegrated? You, Patricia DeLille, Musi Maimane, and others will have had differences that are fundamental, such that you will have disintegrated.
I reject that argument because of that. I'd also like for them to say what those fundamental differences are. Number one. Number two, and finally, Thulasizwe, South Africans can also sink themselves with permanent cynicism. It's important that we get ourselves out of the cycle of land helplessness, where every new political initiative, what you're looking for is something wrong, and then you turn around and say there are no alternatives while the country goes down the drain. People need to get up, get involved, bet on themselves and the people they know, and make sure they occupy political office instead of complaining and tweeting.
All right, Songezo, thank you for that. Songezo Zibi is leader of RISE Mzansi.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Yeah, she's ready to do money like dust, but no, we'll get to you in a moment. Let's go to Andrew Ross, who's called in. Andrew, good morning. You want to share a story. This has to do with a child that... tell me about what happened with this child.
No. I was listening on the radio when I was driving to work today. I didn't hear the South African Medical Association interview, but I did hear the comment from someone who said they should be commenting about issues like my relative was at Stanger and needed to be referred to Albert Lutuli, and they weren't commenting. And so my response to that was that there was an article recently in the News 4 that talked about the 40% staff shortages at hospitals like Albert Lutuli. And so this obviously impacts upon service delivery. And so it's tragic that that person's relative died, but we need to be asking, why is it that our hospitals are so short of staff? And how to be able to reflect on is impacting upon patient care, the ability to refer patients from Stanger to other who need up referral. So that's really what I wanted to say.
Yeah. So you don't want us to be focusing on SAMA, whereas according to you, there are deeper and more fundamental reasons and structural reasons why hospitals are short-staffed and under the strain that they're under.
Absolutely. Hospitals, as professionals leave, nurses, doctors. I was hearing about a hospital in Durban where they have lost 35 medical officers this year and they haven't been replaced. And it's simply impossible. If you to ask the Springboks to play against the All Blacks with 10 players, it would be impossible for them to win. And simply within the healthcare sector, if you are critically short of staff, it's impossible to provide a quality service. And if Albert Lutuli is short of 40% of staff, the reality of them being able to accept referrals, provide care, all of those things is extremely difficult for the people on the ground.
Andrew, thank you for that. That's Andrew Ross out in Durban. Not the greatest of lines there to Andrew, but I think we got the gist of the point that he was making. Now we can get to Ms. Money Like Dust.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
I don't even feel like introducing you, so just go ahead. It's fine.
Just go ahead,
just do your
Thulas. Okay.
Ms. MLD.
MLD, money may blow like dust, but you know what? The wickets, they better not fall like dust when it comes to the Proteas. We want to leave this New Zealand team in the dust because we are determined, especially after we lost to England in the first round of the ICC Women's World Cup. There's a clash today. We're taking on New Zealand 11:30 in indoor. Now, Sinalo Jafta, who's our wicket-keeper batter, saying the squad, they've done their homework, they're ready to show their ability. Also reiterating Captain Laura Wolfart's call to just accept what happened in the first game and move on.
Yeah, I think when you just look at the team, we always knew coming in a tournament like this, games like this happen. I think because it's such a long tournament, I think from us as a team and also as a batting unit is just to accept what has happened. And then, Laura capped it off nicely and say we don't become a bad batting unit overnight. Obviously, homework was done, and now we're just looking forward to the next one.
On to soccer, our very, important team, Amajita. They are South Africa's under-20 team. They beat the United States of America 2-1 to advance to the FIFA Under-20 World Cup knockouts for the first time in their history. Let's go to netball. South Africa's national development coach, Roseanne Matesa, saying the quality of netball displayed by the baby Proteas at the Netball World Youth Cup will certainly benefit the senior team in future. South Africa's under-21 side, led by coach Precious Mthembu, managed a historic top 4 finish at the Junior World Cup in Gibraltar.
There are players that's really putting up their hands and showing that they can actually just, feed into our Proteas, that you do have that number one centre and wing attack, but they are coming up from the under-21s and number 2 and number 3. They can take the place of, our seniors when they do decide that they want to step out. And it's a great place to be, in our country.
And finally, motorsport. George Russell dominated the Singapore Grand Prix as Lando Norris trimmed Oscar Piastri's championship lead after the McLaren pair made contact earlier on. Piastri had to settle for 4th and saw his advantage over Norris cut to 22 points in the title race. But McLaren sealing the defence of their Constructors' Championship with just 6 rounds to go. Well, that's it. We'll be shifting gears out of here, leaving you in the dust. We've got...
Please stop. What's wrong with you?
I have a problem, guys. Let's
Yo.
go. Let's go. I'm Zaikad.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musan. The headlines: alleged organized crime boss and murder accused Nafiz Modak and co-accused, including Zain Killen, are expected back in the Western Cape High Court today. Modak faces a number of charges, including the murder of anti-gang unit detective Charles Kinnear in September 2020. The fourth state witness in the theft of more than $500,000 from President Cyril Ramaphosa's Palapala farm will return to the stand in the Modimolle Regional Court in Limpopo today. And lobby group AfriForum says it will consider privately prosecuting ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula over his family holiday to Dubai in 2016 if the National Prosecuting Authority fails to do so. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAFM. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Very heavy on the Mike 1 highway from Buccleuch, from the N1 all the way down through Sandton and down towards Caller Drive. There was a crash scene there earlier at that Melrose exit, and the traffic hasn't really recovered. It is all jammed heavily through there. Also, an equally big jam is the N3 from Alex up into Buccleuch interchange. Those long-term roadworks there still as we enter a brand new week. Very heavy, and of course that's an all-day queue as well. It's not just something that happens morning and afternoon peak times. You sit on the highway up into Buccleuch, and you will do any time of the day until those roadworks are actually lifted. Pretoria looks all right, no major problems. N1 coming south looks pretty good as well. The first of today's breakdowns coming out of Durban at Cliffdale, so that's an automatic queue pushing back to Keel Ridge. Another delay between Ashburton and Pietermaritzburg, so another breakdown just before you get to Market Road. And the N3 inbound is heavy from Pinetown into Spaghetti Junction on your way to Durban. That's a crash. If you're coming through or out of Pinetown, just stay with the M13, go through Westwood Mall over the N2 bridge and come back on to the N3 at Sherwood. Either cut back into Spaghetti Junction, that way or keep going to town. Just avoid the N3 from Paradise Valley into Spaghetti Junction. It's heavy. In Cape Town in the rain this morning, everything on a go slow. There's reasonably high volumes around Cape Town as well. Crash involving a couple of taxis on Baden Powell at Jeff K. Masemola. That's still heavy. A breakdown on the N2 outbound before Baden Powell, as well as problems getting off, so that's slow. And a vehicle's just overturned. In fact, if you're going into Hospital Bend, it's complicated. Stationary bus and a crash at Hospital Bend on the N2, and then as you get through the bend and merge onto Philip Kosana down towards the Gardens, there's also a vehicle overturning halfway into town there as well. But everything around Cape Town still fairly busy. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
Let's say good morning once again to Ndauling Lichel. And Ndauling, let's talk competition law and competition law enforcement. Tell me about the market inquiry that the Competition Commission is embarking upon in the poultry market and the backing that it's receiving from Astral.
So Astral has thrown its weight behind the Competition Commission's poultry market inquiry, describing it as an opportunity to review the structure and competitiveness of the local poultry sector. In a statement, Astral said it intends to use the process to highlight how integrated poultry production contributes to food security and employment. Astral stressed that the inquiry is not an investigation into anti-competitive conduct, but an assessment of how the market functions and whether any structural constraints distort competition. The group's CEO, Gary Arnold, said Astral would engage fully with the process, both in its capacity as a listed company and as a member of the South African Poultry Association, adding that the group would update shareholders if any material developments arise. Now, the Competition Commission launched the inquiry to determine whether structural features of the poultry value chain restrict competition or access to critical inputs. It said to also examine the industry's cost drivers, profitability, and barriers to entry while considering whether vertical integration, where major firms control multiple stages of production, creates efficiencies or reinforces market dominance.
In mining, tell me about Orion Minerals and its capital raise.
Now, the firm expanded its latest capital raising to 7.7 million Australian dollars, about 89 million rands. This is up from an initial 5.5 million Australian dollars, with new and existing investors snapping up the shares. Now, a capital raise is when a company raises funds by issuing new shares, debt, or other financial instruments to investors. The funds are usually used for ongoing operations, expansion, or debt reduction. And in Orion's case, the proceeds will fund early works at the upper section of the Priska copper zinc mine and support ongoing studies at the O'Keepe copper mine, both based in the Northern Cape. Now, Orion issued 515 million shares at 1.5 Australian cents each, and Tawny Holdings, linked to Orion chairman Dennis Waddell, took up 1 million took up shares, or rather, worth 1 million Australian dollars. Now, investor interest has been boosted by Orion's $250 million funding agreement with Glencore, under which Orion will supply the miner with copper and zinc concentrates. Orion CEO Tony Lennox described the deal as a watershed moment for the company, which has been developing the mine for nearly a decade. Now, the first concentrate production is targeted by the end of next year.
Lastly, Dowling, recap for us where we stand with the markets, as well as give us a sense of the kind of trading day we can expect on this Monday.
So local markets likely to start the week in the green following global peers and benefiting from high metal prices. It's a slow company news day, and investors are eyeing economic data with manufacturing production data due later this week. Ahead of that print, the rand stable at 17.26 to the greenback. Meanwhile, in commodities, a smaller than expected OPEC plus production hike has somewhat calmed concerns about a supply glut, with oil making gains this morning. It's trading above $65 per barrel. And then back to equities. In Wall Street, US futures are in positive territory as investors seemingly look past the government shutdown. And lastly, in Asia, stocks in the green as well, with the Japanese Nikkei at a record high following key political developments in Tokyo.
Right, Dowling, thank you for today. Dowling Lechela there, having kept you updated on business, markets, and other news, economic news over the last 3 hours.
Top Sport on SAFM.
The news making headlines in the world of sports, and we're starting things off with football, where Bafana coach Hugo Broos has finally broken his silence on the points deduction saga that has left his side with no margin of error in the FIFA World Cup qualifiers this month.
People have to stop now also to look for who's responsible. Who's responsible? We all know that we made a mistake. And I see already that the minister also wants to investigate who is responsible. Well, it's clear. I'm responsible. I'm the coach. I have to know that this guy had 2 yellow cards. My technical staff is responsible because they didn't tell me, hey, Tebogo has 2 yellow cards. The team manager is responsible, but he didn't have the follow-up. The player is responsible because he didn't say us anything. And the administration of SAFA is responsible. So now everybody knows who's responsible.
Top Sport on SAFM. Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
Right, let's bring you a story coming out of the courts, but that has links to, long-standing issues in our country. The families of apartheid-era victims and survivors have scored a major legal victory in their fight for justice. The High Court in Pretoria dismissing government's bid to delay a landmark constitutional damages case, ruling that further postponement would unfairly deny victims their right to be heard. The case, brought by 25 families alongside the Foundation for Human Rights, accuses the state of deliberately suppressing prosecutions of political crimes referred by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. The ruling clears the way for the matter to be argued on its merits, with the court ordering the government and the president to pay costs. Let's speak to Sesethu Holomisa, who is Senior Programs Officer for the TRC programs at the Foundation for Human Rights. Good morning, and thank you for your time. How important a victory is this, separating as we do between this process, the court process, with the other processes in which you were litigating that have led to the formation of the Commission of Inquiry?
Good morning, Mr. Simelane, and thank you for having me. Now that the High Court has dismissed the government's attempt to delay the case, the main application can move forward and be heard in court without having to wait for the outcome of the Commission of Inquiry. And as you've said, this case was brought by survivors and families of apartheid-era crimes together with the Foundation for Human Rights. And the next step is for the court to hear the full arguments about how the government's failure to prosecute TRC cases violated the families' rights. We're arguing that their constitutional rights, especially their right to justice, equality before the law, and human dignity, were violated by the state's failure to prosecute apartheid-era crimes. And we're very pleased that this main application can be heard in the court without having to wait for the Commission of Inquiry to complete its mandate.
Why was that not acceptable for you and the families, waiting for the Commission of Inquiry that the President announced a couple of months ago that will be inquiring into why a number of TRC cases were just never prosecuted? Why couldn't this wait?
I mean, we saw this as yet another way for the government to delay this process. It's been decades for these families and survivors of apartheid-era crimes waiting for something to happen. And for the government and the state to try and make the damages really a part of the Commission of Inquiry wasn't acceptable, because commissions of inquiry don't have the power to order people to make payments. They can only make recommendations, and we all know that those recommendations can go unheard, especially with the president being one of the matters implicated in the case. These recommendations would go up to him. And so we thought it's very important that these claims are heard by a court that does have the powers to order the president and the state to make these constitutional damages available to the families.
And when we talk constitutional damages, just explain to our listeners, what is it that you're looking for and what the families are looking for to right a wrong that has been done?
Okay, so there's a distinction between a class action and a constitutional damages application. Constitutional damages are awarded where a court recognizes that there have been egregious ongoing infringements of constitutional rights by the state. And it's an award of monetary damages, which are aimed to enforce to protect rights in the Bill of Rights. And the rights that we're looking at are the rights of access to justice, equal protection and benefit of the law, and the right to human dignity. And the families are asking for a sum of 167 million rand, which will go into a trust to support investigations, prosecutions, memorial work, and public education. And so it's important to recognize that this wouldn't be personal payouts, but rather money used for TRC families and victims to continue the fight for justice. And so the families are also preparing for the Commission of Inquiry. So these processes will be running in parallel, with one being in court and one is the truth-seeking inquiry.
Having not read the papers of the government, so it's hard for me to capture what their argument is, but I'm just imagining, is the work that you are doing to pursue this constitutional damages, proceedings in the courts, is it made any more difficult by the denials that are in place by various people who were actors in the early stages and the early years and formative years of our democracy, from past presidents, past ministers of justice, denials that they were responsible, that at any point they gave any instruction for prosecutions to not go ahead? Or does none of that matter, in that you are looking to the state and saying that the state had a responsibility to uphold these rights, and whomever is responsible, that didn't happen, and in that the rights were violated?
I mean, that's an interesting question, because it's a bit of both. But, we're not alleging political interference anymore. We're saying it did happen. And the mandate for the Commission of Inquiry is for us to investigate who instructed members of the state, whether it's the National Prosecuting Authority or other branches of government, to not prosecute or investigate these crimes that were handed over by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And then for the main claim of 167 million, it's to look at, these rights have been infringed upon for the survivors and the families, and so there need to be some sort of remedy that can help them in their continued quest for justice, and also recognize that we needed a declaration that these rights were infringed upon, and for the state to take accountability in that sense. So there's there's two things going on. It's the claim in court and the Commission of Inquiry, with the Commission of Inquiry looking at who said what, and the constitutional damages claim looking at what can be done for what was done to these families for so long.
All right, let's leave it there. Thank you for your time this morning. That's Sesetu Holomisa, who is Senior Program Officer for TRC Programs at the Foundation for Human Rights.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
All right, let me take one or two of your voice notes. We haven't done that this morning, have we? So lots to reflect upon. The conversation around the banks and what Tahir Mayepa was saying about their complicity in corruption and failing to detect red flags as far as transactions go. Rise Mzansi and the eventual amalgamation of the three parties, Bosa, Rise Mzansi and the Good Party. All of these, let me just play them.
Hi, Thulas. On the issue of banks and their role in the corruption, there's a beautiful piece called The Enablers by the Daily Maverick. If you can read, or the listeners read that, just Google The Enablers in the Daily Maverick, and you'll see how banks are figured to be complicit, especially Nedbank. So I think it will be worthwhile for the listeners to read it and see for themselves what Tahir was talking about. Thank you. This is Papla from Eastras.
Right, thank you. I'll look out for that. I do remember there was a similar series around the State Capture Commission of Inquiry. I think it was Daily Maverick and a few others that were doing that, connecting off the dots as to who did what when, or who failed to do what, and in that way was complicit.
Good morning, Thulasizwe and the listeners of the show. Thulasizwe, it feels so good to rise in Mzansi that Amajita team played so well last night. But when it comes to back home, it doesn't feel so good to rise in Mzansi. Having these political parties collaboration, they must learn from the moonshot theory that decided to went to the moon but landed on the GNU. This is South Africa after all. Brian by Proteaglen.
Yeah, Brian, thank you for that. So you're saying that it's not rising to the moon, this new coalition. Well, not coalition. Is it a coalition? Can you call it a coalition? They're coming to, it's an amalgamation, I think. That's the word I've been using. They're coming together officially under one banner, not coalescing in the sense of, for now they retain their distinct identities, but eventually the idea is that they will become one party, Unite for Change, and it will be registered with the IEC as such. Let me take this one. Someone wants to talk about arrest powers for the SIU. That's an interesting one.
Morning, Bratulas Mbongo Sundisa here. Bratulas, please, man, I would like to urge or request government, please, to give the SIU the powers of arrest. SIU, they are equal to the Scorpions. They are doing an excellent job when it comes to investigation. But the problem is they cannot arrest after completing the investigation. Please, man, can they give them powers to arrest as a belief?
That's an interesting one, isn't it? That gap between what the SIU does and finds and eventual arrest and prosecution, the work that then needs to happen after the SIU has flagged their concerns and have done the civil processes that they can do to, seize assets of various people involved in wrongdoing. But then there's the further work that needs to be done by investigative bodies such as your DPCI, Directorate Priority Crime Investigation, the Hawks, the NPA, and others. It's an interesting one. I wonder what will be the mechanics of granting the SIU arresting powers. Interesting idea.
My name is Jabu Mahlangu, a.k.a. Shuffle the Pack, a.k.a. Mwana Waswing. I start my day with a short prayer. I give hugs to my kids. Bangihlela abantwana mina ngithanda ukukhuluma and I'm very playful. I love all the genre, but Kwaito is number one. Kwaito is our culture. About the late Mandoza, about the late Mapaputsi, and I could relate. And it's in us focus. Ivory Coast for me, it was a beautiful country. I know utabanye bathanda ezinye indawo Mauritius lezo indawo is a love. SABC Sport, this is the main one. Wonke lawo amanye ama channel azalwe because of SABC.
Catch Jabu Shuffle Mahlangu unpacking the beautiful game in a lingo you love on match days, live on Latuma. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Great news, travelers! FlySafe is now flying between Cape Town and Hoedspruit 3 times a week. So, whether you want to chase the Big Five in Kruger, soak up the views at God's Window, or wind through the beautiful panorama route, Hoedspruit is the perfect launchpad to some of SA's amazing natural treasures. Ready to go from coastlines to canyons in just a few clicks? Book flights now at flysafe.co.za from just 1,570 Rand. FlySafe, for the love of flying. T's and C's apply.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, good morning. Traffic levels have fallen away pretty quickly this morning, although there are two big queues across Gauteng, but particularly across the Joburg region. One, of course, is the N3 North, the roadworks at Buccleuch. That is still a jam from Alex. That's an all-day queue that you hit going into Buccleuch as well, not just a peak time phenomenon. All day you queue up. It gets easier as we get further into the day, but then it gets heavier again through peak time in the afternoon. The other big queue is the Mike 1 going south through Sandton. It's a breakdown stationary truck there at Corlett Drive, and a big backlog of traffic coming through from the Woodmead Drive side. Looking okay through Pretoria Midrand on the M1 section. That, as I was saying, has all eased up nicely. Durban bound on the N3. This collision this morning at Spaghetti Junction, still worth avoiding. Traffic is back through Paradise Valley and back on the M13 towards St John's Avenue in central Pinetown. So if you're coming out of Pinetown, just stay on the M13, go through Westfield, come on at Sherwood. And if you're heading into Durban and you know what you're doing, maybe even the M7 and then back up the N2 North as a workaround, or come off and sort of get through Pinetown or get up to Umgeni going through Reservoir Hills. Quite a big backlog of traffic from the Paradise Valley right through to that crash at Spaghetti Junction. Of course, a big work zone as well. Also, breakdown at Cliffdale. This is the first of probably a few today. Traffic already parking back heavily down through Key Ridge just after Shongweni. You'll pick that one up. Cape Town, very heavy on the N2 out of town towards Baden-Powell Drive. There is a breakdown before you get to the Baden-Powell Drive exit. A broken down bus on the N2 inbound at Hospital Bend, keeping pressure up from the airport side. A crash on the N1 outbound at Marine Drive, but that's having a big impact due to the onlooking factor on the N1 inbound to town. That's still heavy, at least as far as Marine Drive. And a collision on Philip Kosana moving from Hospital Bend down in towards the Gardens area. That's quite heavy as you filter into a single lane to get past. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
I have high expectations of my next two callers, right? Simply because of their names. These two carry the names of warriors. And you'll hear in a moment what I'm talking about. So don't let me down. Ngangomhlaba in Mpumalanga. Good morning. Kamalensizwa leli.
Thanks, man. I didn't want to call this morning, but you know, I'm tempted to just have a piece of my thoughts.
Sure.
Regarding the corruption that's been taking place, especially in Texas Hospital, and it's not only there. But I just want to discourage South Africans from wanting to think that the banks are the ones that must stop it. I've never worked for the banks, and I've never worked for government, but I've been a service provider to government for the past 25 years, so I do work with the banks and I do work with funds. Now, the thinking out there is that money is being transferred from government to individual business, a bank account. That is not the case. All a bank can do is when a billion comes into Thulas' account, the bank will ask to Thulas to prove what is the source of this income.
Yeah.
Thulas will then show the bank that no, this is a purchase order, or this is my appointment letter, and this is the invoice I've invoiced that or this particular department. That's where the role of the bank ends. The problem is with the government officials. That's where the rot is, because remember, the enablers are the people who make sure that these unscrupulous businesses get these tenders in an unduly manner, and then in a way, then government money is being siphoned into their business accounts. So the bank cannot stop that. It cannot.
So on paper you have a contract, but how you acquired that contract is where the question is.
On paper, everything is above board, so you can prove that everything is above board, but it's how you acquired it.
All right, Gangomhlaba, thank you. Another igama lensizwa, a warrior's name, Sawubathini. Good morning.
Oh, Sawubathini Thulas.
Sawubathini mhlekazi, bas Sawubathini.
Thank you, Thulas, for taking my call. Morning, even to the SA listeners. Thulas, I think if it was possible for this Mazanga Commission even to include the bargaining council, things that are happening there in bargaining council, corruption there in bargaining council, Thulas, it's so massive, it's so huge.
Really?
Thulas, what is happening in this transport company I'm working? By the way, I'm a truck driver by profession. Now, the employer said we must cash our provident fund money so that we can get it before the bargaining council is falling. So, but now, before you get that provident fund of yours, you must first resign so that you can get that money. So now, Thulas, I don't know. The whole thing that is happening, not to say they are not aware of this act from this particular company, but they are quiet. We have been trying to contact this agent who's situated there in bargaining council to come and help us here. But the guy, he's just playing picky Madelani Thulas with us. So now we don't know, Thulas, now who to consult, what to do.
Let's do this.
This big cash is going to be moved from this entity of bargaining council to be moved to somewhere else. That way we don't know where the money
Sawubathini,
is going.
hold on for me. Let's do this. Let's let the team take your numbers. What you are suggesting, something just doesn't sound right with that, and I see a story that we can possibly pursue there and see if we can follow through. Thomas in Newcastle, good morning.
Morning, Perpetua. I was thinking I'm not going to be here today.
No, I was prioritizing you, Bob.
No, Perpetua, maybe as men, we need to think really what we are agreeing to as being held, because this thing of maternity, men, what do men do when the child is this is in an infancy situation? What are you going to do? The mom doesn't want you around. The mom is sore. The child is crying. What are you taking maternity for?
You father the child. You father the child. You are there to do whatever it is that needs to be done with the newborn baby.
But what needs to be done with the baby at the time? The baby needs to be changed.
Yes,
the
you
baby
do
needs
that.
to be suckled. Oh, please.
You change. What's the problem with that? What's wrong with that?
No, Mpepe, I'm not saying we don't do that. I've brought up 3 of these girls. They are now women.
Yes.
27, 29, and 21. But I know for a fact, when they are like infants, I couldn't do anything. That is why you need even the mothers to come for the newborn mother.
I'm out of time. I think you must call again. You and I must pick up this conversation again. I think we have a lot to talk about. By the way, Thomas there calls me Mpepeto. I let me say this very quickly. I don't mind that at all. That's not my clan name at all. But I've heard many people use that in that, when they refer to a broadcaster and they say Mpepeto. My sense of it is it's based on the recollections and memories of the late Xolani Gwala, who was, of course, Mpepeto by clan name. And I think it's just the credit to the man and his stature and what he contributed to broadcasting that some people, in fact, I know someone, a journalist here at SABC, who thought Mpepeto is actually the isiZulu word for broadcaster. So that says a lot about Mpepeto, the late Xolani Gwala. On that note, let's leave it there. Thank you for listening and thank you for your robust engagement as always. The Talking Point is up next after the news. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane. You've been briefed.
In our top stories, trial of alleged underworld boss and co-accused to continue in the Western Cape High Court, and fourth witness in Phalaphala case to return to the stand. Good morning. Alleged organised crime boss and murder accused Nafiz Modak and co-accused, including Zain Killian, are expected back in the Western Cape High Court today. Modak faces a number of charges, including the murder of anti-gang unit detective Charles Kinnear in September 2020. Recently, the Cape Town Regional Court sentenced him to an effective 7 years in prison for being in a corrupt relationship with a former senior police officer, Brigadier Colondran Govender. Kinnear's widow, Nicolette, says more people must be charged for her husband's murder.
So Zain is in prison for doing the pinging, but now as a police officer, you knew the crime is being committed. They knew. I mean, my husband was assassinated the Friday. The Monday they were there. It wasn't as though they were looking for Zain. They knew who it was. They didn't only know that he was being pinged, they knew by whom he was being pinged. That's how deep and rotten it actually is. And then when it happened, then they saw it fit to go and arrest that person.
The fourth state witness in the theft of more than $500,000 US from President Cyril Ramaphosa's
SAFM, setting the nationwide agenda daily. 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 SAFM, setting the nationwide agenda daily.